Hello, we are live. Welcome everyone to what is now a joint stream, and by everyone I mean like 0 people at this point, but whatever. A joint stream for both Clash of Kings. Now it's 3 people. We just increased by infinity% in the first 6 seconds. If we extrapolate out, we should have
might as well just end it here. We peaked.
We should have like 10 trillion people in a couple minutes.
That's right. Absolutely.
I have 2 guests. We've combined 2 streams. So this will be Clash of Kings and Watchers on the Wall.
Which are not related.
Not related at all. But it's funny. I went back and I listened to some of the first stream for Game of Thrones. And by pure coincidence, I recorded that one day before we recorded the Winds of Winter episode.
Nice.
Oh my God, Prater is already being wrong. Like,
someone get Bookborn in
bro,
here. Someone get Bookborn.
I'm almost on his side with this.
I'm in this book way less on. I like Catelyn way more in this book than I do.
Oh, I like her way less in this book.
Interesting. She's the best chapter in this book, in my opinion, as well.
Ooh, that's a bold take.
Yeah, Catelyn 7. We'll get to it.
Catelyn, oh my God. No.
Catelyn.
Okay. No.
See, I said beforehand that I wasn't gonna be pedantic, and then he's just starting that.
I can't because
I don't care.
That's
like, Catelyn.
That's the audiobook right there. It's like Catelyn, Petire. I can't do it, guys. Catelyn.
I won't say Petire because that's.
If I was on stream and someone genuinely said, "Oh yeah, like Petire," I think I would just turn into sludge live on camera and die. Like,
I would just implode. Absolutely implode.
Anyway, and I am going to share my screen here so you guys can see my notes, and we're gonna go through it so everyone can see the chaos. These I were writing down in my phone. We're starting with Clash Kings.
Cool.
Clash Kings first because the books came first and are better.
So here's the thing. I feel like the one connection we could make is that we get, wildlings in this book. And I'm like, the Battle of the Wall. That's our one connection.
Yeah, the Wall is here too. And maybe Jon Snow as well. He might have chapters in this book.
He might.
So first, I have to ask the question to Kyle of what score do I have to give this book to not be a hater? And what score are you expecting?
The thing is, I'm much less salty about people's opinions on Clash of Kings because
I love Clash of Kings.
I love Clash of Kings too, but I can see both sides of it a lot more. Like if you don't like Storm Swords, you just get away. With Clash of Kings, the people that are like, oh, I feel like it's slow paced or kind of like has some plot lines I don't like I understand where they're coming from. And the people who like super love it, I'm like, yeah, I totally get like Clash of Kings is fire. So I actually, as long as you're not like a 7, I'm just like, that's fine. I would say for the purposes of this question though, let's see. We think that you gave Game of Thrones like a 9.1, 9.2.
I think it was 9.1. I checked.
Okay. I think around par makes you not a hater because if you like it less than the Game of Thrones, I would say less than 9 would make you a hater because you can like it a little bit less than Game of Thrones, but like in the same vicinity.
I think.
But I'm gonna guess that you gave it a 9.3.
I was gonna say 9.4, so we're really close. Like
9.4 is like some of his all-time.
Laura, I think doesn't know the bar. 9.4s are like
see,
for reference, my book of the year last year, 9.4.
I'm projecting because Clash of Kings is my favorite of the books. So
you like it more than Storm. Interesting.
I do, yeah.
She does.
So
she's insane.
I am perfectly sane. Thank you. Hello, goodbye, Evie.
Water is also excellent, by the way.
I'm mostly just like projecting my hopes for you, but realistically, I feel like 9.28 if we're gonna do like rare rules.
Sure. So Laura just said Clash Kings is her favorite. Kyle, where is it? Second for you? Third? I know Storm.
So when I first read the series, way back as a wee lad, it was my second favorite, and it actually slides down further with time. But that's just because Storm is always my favorite. Feast is now my official second favorite. And then with that, between Clash and Game, it kind of just depends on what I read most recently. But I think I like Clash more than Game, so it would be third.
Okay. So Clash has been my second favorite. Like first time I read it, second favorite. Second time I read it, second favorite. Third time we'll find out. I still have 3 to read. So it's time to bring up some screen sharing. So you guys, we want to share this. So. Notes. These are pretty chaotic. I made these notes on my phone as I was reading, so there's going to be some wild spelling mistakes. And
As
we're
long
just
as
gonna
they're pronounced
ignore
correctly, that's what matters.
it. Well, they might be spelled
You're
wrong.
gonna get all the comments about being a grammar Nazi.
So I also, by the way, have this open, so I can't see the comments. So this is gonna be interesting. I guess I could just split it, but whatever. This is going to be up to you. Actually, what happened? Ooh, I can actually kind of see it from here if I do like that. Fancy. It's going to be up to you to see comments. So we're going to start with the prologue. I think this is my favorite Song of Ice and Fire prologue, but they're all pretty close.
It's the best.
It's pretty goated. For my first reaction, there's going to be a constant thing, is Renly is 21 years old. What? No, he's not. He's like 30. What are you talking about, George? You got it wrong.
I think he's even kind of young in the show.
He is.
Yeah.
He's
Like,
younger.
I don't think he's 21, but like Genton Anthony couldn't have been 30 when he played that role. So
Laura, this is your favorite book in the series. Can you
It
defend it getting Renly's age wrong in the prologue?
So, my theory is just that it's kind of how we see an oopsie baby for a lot of people, that Robert and Stannis are older and Renly is significantly younger. That's kind of the vibe that I got. And also, I feel like it then further plays into the personality differences between them, because he wasn't really raised with Stannis and Robert. I feel like he kind of just followed them and was like, I don't want to be like either of those people, and I'm my own person. And that's kind of how Renly, I justify it in my head. But yeah, I just feel like he is younger.
yeah, like Renly was like a baby when his parents died.
Yeah, exactly.
Not a baby, but like a very young child. That's why he's
okay.
He's
and then
different.
as you can see, I was already feeling tinfoily, because the second note I have is, how sure are we that the patch face we got is the original one that was like on the boat? Because there's stuff I forget at this point where it was like they weren't sure, and I'm like, is this a time traveling Bran? What's going on? I'm kidding.
While we're on Renly, though, I have a quick question, which is, on your first or second read, or however your memory, did you catch that Renly was gay?
Yeah.
I read it when I was 14. I don't remember.
Immediately.
Like, it's
did
not.
You notice this time? Like, you're like, oh, it's obvious.
Yeah, I mean, it's very.
Yeah.
I feel like it's mentioned in. Is it mentioned in Game of Thrones somewhere? I feel like, I don't know. I mean,
it's not mentioned ever anywhere. It's
Okay.
just,
It's
I mean,
alluded
heavily,
to.
strongly.
Yeah. I feel like if you're
that
paying
didn't even
attention,
register for me to look for, because of how obvious it was. That's kind of like, hey, did you notice that, like,
some people
Jamie's
don't
good
notice.
at sword
Some
fighting?
people named Bookborn didn't notice.
Wait, Bookborn didn't notice Renly's gay?
No, I told her, and she was like, I just thought they were praying, and I was like, oh, you sweet summer child.
Oh my!
No, they were not.
Go make fun of her after this.
Yeah, I thought we'd given her credit for like paying attention while reading it. Okay, whatever. So this was a big thing I talked about for Game of Thrones, that I actually think Clash does do slightly worse for most of it, but it's worth noting here, and it's how good George is at progressing other characters' plots, like in other point of views. So the prologue is obviously in like Crescent's point of view, but we learn how like Renly, this is where we learn Renly has declared himself king and created his own Kingsguard. He's consistently very good at this. Like, he just finds ways to like advance other plots in random, seemingly unrelated point of views.
He gets worse with that with each book, I think.
Yes, he's definitely progressive. Well, I don't know. I'll see for Storm, but he was very, very good at it in Game of Thrones, which, granted, it obviously helped that like all the characters except Daenerys start in like this within 2 square kilometers of each other. So like that helps.
Yeah, but he does get like he gets this thing where he's like, I have to write every travel scene and every like, I'm like, we could have skipped a couple of things.
Definitely
like,
current George might have been like, I think we need a point of view in Renly's court as he declares himself king.
That would have been so interesting, honestly. Like, I don't, well, because we sort of get that like via Brienne, right? Like a little bit, but it's more just her feelings about Renly, I feel like, than anything else. But I think that would have been a really cool take.
That is true. All right. And we get to, and then I don't actually have notes, but his prologue was sick. Like, Mel pressing, so like good. Drinking it, and then like Melisandre drinking it and just having nothing happen. Like, also, Stannis is such a dick. Like,
I love Stannis.
I love Stannis too.
So there's going to be a chapter in
Stannis
this book.
apologist.
I'm going to get to a chapter in this
Absolutely.
book where I'm like, this is just all the banger Stannis quotes concentrated in one chapter.
Oh,
For most of this book, though,
That's incorrect because all the other
Okay,
Stannis
that's
chapters
true.
also have banger. But I
he's
get you.
also
Correct. Thank
like
you.
he's just
Thank you,
quite
Kyle.
disagreeable of a human.
Oh, that's what makes him so. But here's
But
the
yeah.
thing with Stannis. Like, I felt immediately, just first of all, from the first book, I was like, Stannis is the rightful king. Like, there's no question about this. Stannis is the rightful king.
Arguably Dany, but
Do
whatever.
I think that he would be a good king? In a lot of ways, yeah, I do.
He'd be fine.
Simultaneously, I love in the book that you can't really tell if he's using Melisandre or Melisandre's using him. Like, that for me was such an interesting dynamic. And the introduction to her in that prologue, like that prologue is my second favorite prologue of all time. Like, I friggin' love
What's
that
your
prologue
first?
so much. It's Eye of the World. I love the prologue
That
to Eye of the
prologue is
World.
pretty
Even
bad.
though I don't like Wheel of Time, I love that prologue. And the second I read this and met Melisandre, I was like, I'm in. This is great. It was so good. Oh, love it.
The first time I read this prologue, I remember not liking it very much. And I don't mean like not liking it much, like I thought it was bad. I just like, I was new to reading fantasy. Like I just didn't. So I was like, wait, there's like new people that I should give a shit about. Like it was just really difficult for me. Melisandre was a really long name. I was like, I don't know what is going on here. But even within all of that, I thought the little short story of Crescent's arc was really, really emotional. And I think that
So
really tells you
good.
just how good Martin is at like writing characters. Because even if I was like in over my head at the time, I was just like, man, poor Crescent.
Yeah. Well, not only that, you get the real introduction to Stannis in this, and then we get the introduction to this new religion, this really weird religion. So it's a lot of information that gets crammed into that prologue, but I think it's done brilliantly. I think it's so good.
Yeah, I mean, obviously this could change when I read the other 3 prologues, but it like, I assume it will stay my favorite of the prologues because it has been in the past. And it was really good this time.
I don't know where this like revisionist history where like people don't like the prologue to Storm of Swords comes from. I'm not saying it's better than this one, but like I've seen it a lot recently being like, third one's not that good. I'm like, excuse me, yes it is, but
they're all good. They're all good. Hey, look, it's Theo.
Theo, we were talking about you before.
Send me your thumbnail photo, please, so I can use it. Yes.
You know, I'm going to call Theo out now that he's here. He was like, oh, I'll get back to you next week. I got to check on my camera and lighting.
He did that to me too. He did that to me too.
He responded to you, and he's just still
fair,
checking his camera on me, Theo. So how dare you?
I pursued that because I saw that he made a comment on his YouTube page, and I was like, I saw your community tab poster. So own up.
Oh yeah, by the way, are you inviting on for a specific thing or a love bomb? Because I'm just wondering, you know, where my invite was for one of those. You know?
I think she's legally not able to have me on a love bomb. She's like,
to be fair,
Kyle doesn't love stuff.
You don't. We complain about things. That's our relationship. So no, honestly, you guys are invited any single time that you want to come on. So just let me know when, and I am happy to have you guys on.
Okay. Yeah. You know, I just figured my invite might have got like lost in the mail. Like you might have sent to Raven, and the Raven got lost or something.
I was gonna be asking you guys after this stream, so not to be put on the spot, but there it is.
Okay.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, that's what they always say.
I just want to say while we're talking about stuff that's not Clash of Kings related, Laura, can you read this screen?
No, I don't.
Not at all.
Okay.
Which I can't, which is fantastic because that way I can read
you can definitely zoom in. I'm 100% sure.
Yeah, I can't read that
right,
even with my glasses, most likely, and they're not. That's better.
There we go.
It is better.
Cool.
Okay, so
far we're nailing this stream, guys. Nailing it.
Yeah, I forgot I did that last time.
Prologue.
And also, so the first 2 notes aren't that noteworthy. Joffrey's annoying, whatever. And also, it just recapped the Game of Thrones more than I remember because young me struggled a lot more with these than I do now. But the main one is Sansa also like had not quite an Arya style list, but she like every time someone, even who played a small role, who came up in Ned's death, she'd be like, "Yep, that's the person who like held him down. Oh, that's one of the people who chased him." And like she remembered as well. It's not just Arya, and I thought that might be noteworthy.
Yeah, it's just different the way that they go about it. They manifest their rage quite differently, the 2 of them.
Yeah, I remember even just like remembering when Eris Oakheart, when we get him in Feast, I was like, oh, he's one of the ones that didn't want to beat Sansa, so he's not as bad. So he's setting that kind of stuff up 2 books ahead.
We're setting a really high bar for people here, but you know what? At least it is something. And then we get this Tyrion chapter. So I was complaining more for these first 2 chapters than I think I like the start of Game of Thrones distinctly more than I like the start of Clash of Kings, which I didn't remember doing. I think this is Tyrion's best book, in my opinion. I think Tyrion 1 is like the worst Tyrion chapter in his best book. Partially, this conversation, I was kind of like, it feels like it's supposed to be written by like Varys is like subtly communicating with Tyrion using like euphemisms, and Tyrion's like translating it. But I'm like, they're kind of obvious, bro. Like,
I agree. I remember thinking that on my last read too. I was like, why? He's like, Tyrion's like, I know this game. It's like, of course you do. He's speaking English to you.
Like, yeah, bro. It's not that deep. But the last line is great. So there's a lot of really good last lines in this book of like every chapter. It reminded me, the last book where I noticed this is The Burning God, the third Poppy War book by R.F. Kuang. She also likes to like end every chapter on a line, but there's a really big difference between the two, and that's that George is good at the one-liners. Sorry, R.F. Kuang, accidental slander.
Rebecca's catching strays in here.
But I kept thinking that
slander.
It's deliberate slander. I kept thinking that while reading this, because I remember reading that book, which I mostly enjoyed. But it's like she wanted to do the George thing where you end like every chapter on a banger, but they just weren't. They were just like, oh, whatever. Tyrion being like, all due justice, that's a banger line because that's so unfamiliar. That's like, yeah, that's the thing we don't expect from him. And Laura, I don't know if you're familiar with my war against ringmail, but you're about to be, because I just like a reminder that gold cloaks wear ringmail, and that's probably why they constantly get wrecked. Are you familiar with my war with ringmail, Laura?
I'm not, but I'm very intrigued. So
okay, so ringmail, this is a specific beef I have with George. I have said that if he releases special editions and all he does, like he changes the word ringmail to chainmail in every instance that it shows up, I will bump up the scores of every single book a little bit. Just like,
so what's the hate towards it?
I'm about to explain that. So ringmail is specifically, it's describing like a piece of like clothing that has like rings sewn into the piece of the clothing. It didn't exist in the Middle Ages because it has the key property of not stopping swords from entering your vital organs. It was invented in like the 18th century when fancy pants rich kids wanted to look like they were tough and dress in armor. But it's not actually functional armor. It's just heavy and shiny because the links aren't like attached together. So like a sword will just bounce off whatever ring it hits and then go through your clothes and then you're stabbed. So this was a big thing in Game of Thrones because every single person for so long into reading that book, like I was 3/4 of the way in, and everyone who'd worn ringmail was dead by the time of Dance with Dragons. And like the people who you'd think might be wearing ringmail were just described as male, and they were all alive. And I was like, oh my God, is it a conspiracy?
Okay, so can I interject here just slightly? Have you seen actual chainmail being made?
Like in person?
In person.
No.
Okay. One of my best friends makes armor.
That's extremely cool.
It's very cool and extremely niche. And I have seen him make plate and chainmail. And chainmail, they're little rings. Like that's what it is. So it could be acceptable. I feel like just in terms of what the final product is and what the appearance of it is, it's rings. I get what you're saying, but I think
get what the defense here is for
what I love. I'm gonna interrupt. What I love is we have 3 extremely pedantic people on a stream that are all pedantic about different shit. And so there's Jake here being like, I have a war against ringmail, and Laura has a war against, I don't know, Dark Age, something else. And now she's like defending the ringmail, and I don't get
what the defense is. I am aware that chainmail is rings,
but also I have specific things that I hate that everybody's like, "How? Why do you hate this?" We're very similar in this.
I feel like it's totally fine, Jake. I'm just saying I can see why that wording was used, even though I understand your frustration.
Yeah, like because it's just probably like, oh, it's another word for chainmail. So the only reason I'm bringing this up as much is because like 700 pages into a game, not 600 pages into a Game of Thrones, I was like, oh my god, everyone who's wearing ring mail is dead, and it kept being like, oh, that dude's alive, and he's just wearing mail. But then the two people in Game of Thrones who were wearing ring mail who are alive still was Maya Stone and Braun. I always say his name wrong. Whatever.
Jake, what if there's somebody who really, really is like an armor nerd and they're just finishing Clash of Kings, so they're watching this stream? And
what does it say?
All the people.
Full A Song of Ice and Fire spoilers. Any A Song of Ice and Fire related stuff is fair game.
It's our news conference press release, Kyle. Get it together.
That's true. That's true. I forgot about that.
This is all spoilers for everything.
All the males. All the males.
Jon Snow's dead.
Yeah, but probably not.
For now, we'll never know.
We will know. That book's finished, baby. I'm a believer.
He's coping.
Well, if Bookborn gets her way, it's going to be released later this year. So I'm just waiting to find out.
So, Bran 1. Is this the worst Bran book? I'm pretty sure this is the worst Bran book.
Are they all equally bad?
I hate Bran, so I think they're all terrible for Bran.
Yeah, I feel like Game of Thrones more is happening around Bran.
Yeah, this is the only book where, so on my most recent reread, I was like, I had I don't know, the 4th Bran chapter, and I was just like, I'm skipping this one. I just need to, I can't do it.
I kept getting to them, and I kept being the one like, oh, this is the one where the Ironborn show up, and then it kept not being the one where the Ironborn show up.
So, Jake made me do a game where I had to rank all the POVs throughout the series and how many POVs they have. And I did, I think, pretty well. But Bran was, the one that really screwed me up because my Bran was way off. And the reason my Bran was way off is because I feel like he has 6 million chapters in the Clash of Kings and then, 2 for the rest of the series. And I know that that's not correct. I'm like, my brain is just upset. So I'm trying to, I was trying to overcorrect for that. Be like, he probably has 4 chapters in Clash of Kings. So then I was really wrong, and he has
no. Yeah, I was gonna say I feel like it's closer to 10. But for me,
I mean, I can bring
his chapters generally feel the longest. It's the character that I want to be interested in, but I just can't force myself.
I do really like on reread now that I'm I'm not really a big theory person, but I'm fully in on the Grand Northern Conspiracy theories. And so in which case I like this book more on reread for Bran because I get to see all of the different lords and intermingling politics of the North. But on first read, or even second read, or any read if you don't care about that stuff, you're just what is Mors Umber doing? Who cares? And I'm like, Mors Umber is pretty cool though. So,
but I think this is still at least, Game of Thrones Bran, there's stuff happening around him for most of it. And then someone tries to kill him. That was kind of interesting. And then Storm of Swords Bran, they're running through the woods and running away from shit. And then Dance with Dragons, there's lore implications. Clash of Kings Bran, it's he's not even really in danger for the first 5 of his 7 chapters. So anyway,
he does end on a banger though. I will say that.
I just 3 chapters into this book, I was kind of worried. I was wait, I kind of had complained that Tyrion one, that conversation was kind of obvious, and then this Bran chapter was a little boring, and I mean the Sansa chapter was pretty good. Had a lot of recapping. I was like, what's going on? Anyway, we ended up being fine.
Of the first 3 books, Clash of Kings is the slowest build.
I agree.
To things happening. And it's very intentional, right? We're supposed to, with Daenerys, we're supposed to kind of feel with her being in the waste and stuff, it's supposed to feel long and tedious. And I feel like we're supposed to be living in the after effects of what happens at the end of book 1 for a little bit before the plot really gets moving.
We also have the comment.
Yeah, and the comment, everyone's real obsessed with that comment.
Everyone's this comment signifies our victory.
Yeah.
It's prophecy. Literally everyone.
Or dragons, or magic, or it's, Azor Ahai, all kinds of stuff. So yeah, but I didn't mind that slow build because of the fact of how book 1 ends. And I mean, like, I read them back to back. So it wasn't like I was a first time reader where there was years between them where I'm sitting there itching, thinking like, okay, I want the plot to really get moving. For me, it almost felt like a little bit of a reprieve where I could breathe with the characters, especially people like Sansa and Arya, where you want to know what they're grieving and experiencing at that point.
It's also worth noting this, like the first 3 chapters of 60.
Yep.
We're doing fine. We get to Arya 2. Really good Arya book. Wait, Arya 2. What happened to Arya 1? Whatever. I didn't write anything about Arya 1, I guess. Oh yeah, Arya 1 was the one where she told Hot Pie that Hot Pie was telling how he like murdered someone, and it was kind of like really obvious. He was like, George did a really good job of writing a kid, like a teenage boy, overcompensating his lie to make him sound tough.
Completely.
And being like, bro, you're not built like that. Like,
well, I mean, Hot Pie is the prince who was promised, so he has to set him up properly.
Okay, Preston, calm down.
There it is. Prince that was promised who bakes. He's an all-around man. Love him.
Arya and Gendry almost fought. That could have been an entertaining fight. My money's probably on Gendry. But
yeah, of course, Arya's an 8-year-old girl with no training.
Yeah. Yes, my money's definitely on Gendry.
Most definitely on Gendry, yes.
That being said, so the reveal that the Gold Cloaks are going after Gendry was awesome, just like the way it's written. Because it's like, you don't even really, I think on the first read, consider that they're going for someone else. And then for like the rest of the book, you're like, why the hell are they after Gendry? And then it's like, oh, it's because Robb's passing. But that was cool. Okay, I have a question for you, a Song of Ice and Fire nerd. Sir Andrew Tarth is a master of arms at the Wall. I was like, this is a Tarth character. Presumably he's like...
We don't know the relation. He's probably like an uncle to Brienne or something.
Oh, also I got Tarth and Tarly mixed up, so I was very confused. I got Tarth and Tarly mixed up, so I was like, wait, he's related to Sam? What the hell's going on? How do they never talk? Tarth, related to Brienne. Okay, that makes more sense. Also, I just didn't know of like that many knights at the Wall, because it just is like Sir Alistair Thorne is doing most of it. Anyway, Sir Andrew Tarth seems like a much less dickish master of arms than Alistair Thorne. So good job, people.
To be fair, most people would be.
That is true. That's a low bar.
We have a lot of things to say about Alistair later.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
He doesn't do that much in this book.
He's not in it.
Yeah, he's not in it at all.
Sorry, no, that's not true. Sorry, I was thinking of the show. He's in one scene in the book.
Yeah. Anyway, and also, as you can see, we have here Jon wears ring mail. It was very tragic. He never overtly wore ring mail in the first book, so this was a huge moment for me. We're moving on.
Well, I mean,
he did kind of die.
Foreshadowing. It's all there.
It's all foreshadowing. Yeah.
There you go. It's like that theory with the show that everyone that Robert touched Baratheon, they all died of the Starks.
I feel like this is just a lot of people die, so there's just all these like weird correlations. I really like Jon. I told this came up for a Game of Thrones, which I think I like Jon slightly more in a Game of Thrones, but he's still great in Clash of Kings. He's one of my favorite characters. Young me, he was like young me, loved Jon, and then I'm young now still, but like teenage me. And then I convinced myself that was just because I was super basic when I read it. But you know what? Jon is just legit great. Prater's going to come in here and be like, he doesn't have a personality because he just remembers season 8 show Jon. But Jon is actually pretty
I love Jon.
I'm like,
Jon is my favorite in this book.
Like, I've always liked Jon. He's not in my top favorite. He's one of those things where like I'm never upset to be reading from him. I actually really like his dance plotline a lot. I like him in this book a lot. But if I'm like listing my favorite characters, I don't think he makes the top 10.
Oh, he does for me.
Honestly, for sure.
In this book, I'm really basic. Like, I loved learning about Stannis, and I loved the Davos chapters. But for me, I really loved the Jon. He's so great. But I really enjoyed, in this book specifically, Daenerys and Jon quite a bit.
You know, I'm going to hate you.
Daenerys in this book?
Interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, we're going to talk about that when that comes
so
up.
by the way, I was going to hate y'all to say, I'm going to hate you with the surprise Clash of Kings character POV tier list at the end. I'm actually just going to use the Song of Ice and Fire one on the internet because I'm too lazy to make one. But we're just going to ignore everyone who doesn't have a point of view in a Clash of Kings, and we'll discuss that. My defense for Daenerys in this book is that 1/5 of the Daenerys chapters are the House of the Undying.
And that's exactly it, and that's what makes the whole
it's only one chapter, but it's 20%.
I don't like the House of the Undying a tenth as much as the rest of the fans do.
We'll
Like,
talk
I
about it.
don't think it's bad. Like, I feel like I don't like it. I'm not a prophecy. I did a whole stream on House of Undying, and people tried to tell me all the little hinty bits, and I'm like, great, fantastic. You know what's not? You know what's better? Battle of Blackwater.
Kev, what's up, Kev? Battle of Blackwater is better, but that's okay.
House of the Undying is so good.
Most of Catelyn 1 was just
Kyle, your love bomb status has been revoked.
I'll be on there first. Catelyn 1 was mostly just me feeling dread because it was like Robb being like, I'll do another whisper run.
Jake.
Sorry, Catelyn.
I
have a question because I'm actually trying to refrain because I don't care that much, but I do have just like an actual question. You watched the show, so like, what do you?
Yeah,
think
I just forget. I don't know.
Like, I don't understand.
I don't think about it.
Okay, that's fine.
Do you guys see my lights flickering here? Because like something's happening outside. So if I disappear, do not be surprised.
Okay, I'll keep that in mind.
Cool.
I didn't see any flicking lights, but I believe you.
I didn't either. But if you
I'll
suddenly drop out, we'll assume that it's because of the power reasons and not because you're
and
like,
not because
what
of
about House of the Undying?
Opinions.
Yeah. I honestly wish this was true.
Slander House of the Undying. I just don't like it as much as anybody else.
I honestly wish this were true because it would give me an out. I'm actually just incompetent at humaning. So.
Except a trout.
Hey, I'm Canadian. I get to choose how you pronounce sorry.
Everyone here is Canadian, Jake. Everyone here is Canadian.
Well, yeah. Kyle's more American for sure. He's spent more time in America, and so have you. I'm the most Canadian.
That is true. He has.
That is true because Kyle and you have dual citizenship, Kyle.
Yes, I do.
And now I do too. So yeah.
Yeah. So I am the law.
Jake is the last standing.
I'll send Theo to your house to egg it.
That's
I have contacts in your city.
Yeah, we're taking over, Kev. You can't stop us.
It's a slow
world domination
takeover.
starts now. Okay, Tyrion 2. He stopped Balon Swan from being arrested for treason. So Kyle has me now noting every time Balon Swan comes
As I should. And by the way, I'll let you know, I memed Balon Swan all the time when like Bookborn was going through, and then she would just heart it but not like actually say anything. I was like, did I ever tell you why I like Balon Swan? She's like, no, I didn't even pay attention to it. And then so I sent her the little thing I said on Discord about why Balon Swan is the bee's knees. And she was like, wow, I guess because he was just like a background character. I didn't notice how cool he was. And I was like, exactly. That is my task in life, is to show people Balon Swan's legit. And it starts with him making fun of Joffrey and Tyrion not executing him for treason.
Good job, Tyrion.
Well, to be fair, someone needed to. Yeah.
This was pretty interesting seeing Tyrion's approach, like in contrast to Ned, though. This is probably the smarter way of going about it, but it was interesting that like everything he does in Tyrion 2 has nothing to do with like actually trying to make things better. Well, Ned was like, yeah, I have power. I'm the hand of the king, whatever, blah, 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 blah. And then he thought about that later. He was like, okay, we need to like secure the gold cloaks. But when he started, he was like, oh my God, the realm is in debt. Robert is drinking a ton. Tyrion wasn't thinking about that at first. He was like, all right, we got to secure the gold cloaks. Because you know what? If I'm dead, I can't help anyone. That's math.
My hot take is, I don't even know if it's a hot take, but Ned isn't a good hand of the king. Like, he's just not. Ned's a good person, but
he's a good hand of the king in some situations because he did.
Terrible at what he does.
I think he was thrown into a situation in a way he wasn't prepared for. I think in a different, like, if he had become the hand of the king like 3 years earlier, I think he would have been a perfectly fine. He just he wasn't prepared for that exact situation at that exact time because he was just adult. But
also, yeah, if he had a time in a less chaotic time to be hand of the king, Robert would have probably just he could have done his own thing and appointed people who he trusts, and he would have actually had people who he trusts and not people he has to be blackmailing or tricking into doing what he said. So I think in many situations he could have been an excellent hand of the king. He just was so
Ned
poorly
and
equipped.
Stannis were actually on the council at the same time doing stuff. Shit would have got done.
That's true. But again, I feel like that wouldn't have only been Ned's influence. That would have been the people around him. But this is completely unrelated. But do you guys have a house that you feel is like the one you're the most connected to, and does that impact when you're reading?
Is that
I mean,
I feel like it's kind of
Starks.
stark for like everyone because they're.
No, there's some people that are real
that's
like
true.
Targaryen.
I
They're
guess.
like some people really like the Greyjoys, and those people are questionable.
What?
No, that's my husband. Theon Greyjoy is his favorite character.
I know that, and that's why I said that.
Yes, exactly. So,
Like, I think
I'm
on
not Stark,
average, I like the Lannister characters. I think the Lannisters are on average more interesting people than the
Oh, they
Stark
definitely
people.
are.
But definitely, like, I'm cheering. Like, you know, when you're reading, I know what's going to happen, but still, like, I'm cheering for the Starks.
Yeah.
I love the Baratheons, like straight up love the Baratheons. So if I'm
fair.
cheering
All
for
of them?
someone, it's I mean, yeah, kind of. I love Stannis.
I kind
deeply.
of forget about the Baratheons, even though they're like one of the
Me
most
too.
powerful
Like, I mean, I
houses.
don't like I don't, but I mean, like in terms of like when I'm thinking of people, here's how the run through goes. Too. If I'm thinking of people to root for, it's like, well, is it the Starks, the Lannisters, or the
What the
Targaryens? I understand
fuck?
there's more.
The phrase. I mean, if I had to like pick
Hey, there's
my
a couple good
own
ones.
house,
There's a couple good ones.
if it's what represents my personality,
Oliver
it's
Frey.
probably a Targaryen house. But I love reading about the Baratheons. I think they're super enjoyable. But also, the Martells are probably second. Like Starks don't break my top three.
So I'm like, Baratheons are objectively like a super influential house, but I'm like, oh yeah, it's like the Starks versus the Lannisters, and I'm like, you know, the Baratheons are just kind of
Baratheons are
there.
literally
And every
the
once in a
kings.
while, I remember that they're like, hey, they're actually like pretty important, and like Storm's End is
For the entire
big deal.
series, a Baratheon is the king.
a
I mean,
Baratheon.
alleged Baratheon.
Yeah.
Okay. So Arya 3, was there fake warging going on? This is, I think she goes to battle and runs into wolves, and the wolves kind of look at her and then leave.
Arya vaguely wargs for a long time. I don't remember when she first does it. If you think there was, there probably was.
That's fair.
She has
Likely,
dreams about Nymeria all throughout when she's running around the Riverlands.
So as you can see, I have
Which
very
I love.
thorough notes on Davos 1.
Hey.
A lot of in-depth thoughts. Moving on.
Davos.
Okay, are you ready for tinfoil? This was weird. I was like, this is Theon. Weird chapter. I'm gonna talk about
this chapter. This chapter is so cringe. It's
it's cringe. I'm like,
Ugh.
is this a like scam going on? Like, is the captain in on this? What's like, this is the way everything is like described is so weird. If it's not, that I think I'm on copium. But okay, this is what we have.
Tell me your theory first.
I'm while reading it, I'm like, is this a scam for them to try and get like more money from like Theon? Just like the entire way the entire interaction is described feels so weird.
I think Theon was just taking passage, and he was an arrogant noble, and he was like, "Hey, Captain's daughter. Hey, Captain, I'm gonna take that daughter. She's gonna come with me." And then he's like, I don't want to be executed, so okay. That's what I think happened.
Anyway.
Theon in the beginning is a piece of shit. Like, and I think it's intentional because of the arc that Theon goes to. He really amps up how much of a douche he is in the beginning, and that's clear in this chapter.
It's funny because the chapter kind of reflects his long-term arc, because it starts with like, bro, this guy sucks. But then you kind of feel bad for him because of like how unfairly his family treats him. On his return, where they're like, I kept being like, okay, you know, Balon, if you didn't want him to get raised by the Starks, maybe you shouldn't have got fucking wrecked. Did you ever consider that, you dumbass? Like,
Balon is like, I think, the number one least self-aware character in the entire series. The level of copium that man is on. He's like, so I lost before, but you know what I'm gonna do? Lose again. Like,
exactly.
like, I don't understand this.
He's blaming like Theon for this. It's like, bro, this was your fault. Like, what are you talking about? And like his family, like Theon's family, like the other Greyjoys, treat him so horribly. Like, it's like, hey, yeah, your son / brother / nephew comes back after being gone for years because they were a fucking prisoner after you got your ass handed to you in a war that you started for no goddamn reason. Should you be like, hey, welcome back? Should be like, why haven't you been here? It's like, what? This whole operation was your idea. Like,
I will say, Dagmar Cleftjaw is the shit.
He's cool.
And he's been in one chapter in the whole series, and I'm still like, yo, I hope Dagmar's doing all right. Like whenever I'm like reading Dance with Dragons, I'm like, oh man, Dagmar better, because like, and I think the contrast there is, first of all, just like a cool looking dude, cool story, but he's the only person who treats Theon kindly in the whole Iron Islands.
The best Greyjoy doesn't show up until Feast anyway, and it's Victorian. So like, I don't.
Victorian's in.
Is
Clash
he?
Kings.
No, he's not.
I don't remember him having.
But his POV is in.
He doesn't have a POV, but
he's mentioned.
Yeah, I'm talking about like
easier?
what a POV, like a POV character. Yeah, okay, yeah, but his POV.
I will double check right now, but he's in.
I don't think he is in a scene in a Clash of Kings.
I didn't think he was. I thought he showed up in Feast, but I could.
I'm almost positive.
It's been a hot minute.
The other uncle shows up.
Yes. Well, he takes him to the whole. I'm going to look at the Wiki Vice and Fire right now.
Anyways, Balon is the clown next to the soldiers meme of the War in the Five Kings. Like
so
it's the War
right
of the Four Kings.
It says books, a Game of Thrones appendix, a Clash of Kings appears, a Storm of Swords mentioned. He's in one of his chapters. It's like they're like in a hall.
Yeah, like maybe it's the hall where like he goes to like the dinner with everyone.
Yeah,
and he's
it's when Asha gets the ship, and then he's like, I get one measly ship. I know I would have show brain. I watched the show today.
Yeah. I'm not gonna lie. I said Asha because I thought it was Asha, and when you said Yara, I was like, well, surely Kyle would get it right. I must.
No. It's just because I watched the show today, and I'm in show brain mode.
Okay.
Yeah, no, so I think he just was like, Victorian, you're going to go to Moat Cailin and block him off, and then Victorian's like, there's the Dothraki Sea out there somewhere, whatever stupid shit Victorian says. But yeah, he's only in one scene. He's way more prominent later.
Oh, I completely forgot that. I love Victorian, but yeah, like...
this is where I went tinfoily. Ready for this? I was like, that's kind of weird. So also, Danny's the only person who actually has a case for the comet being related to her, so good job. Since every single person in this book is like, that comet is a prophecy for my victory, because see, it's red, and my sigil either is red or my enemies are red, or I'm kind of friends with someone who has a red sigil, or it represents the blood of the enemies that are happening. Like,
who kind of has a red sigil.
That was really good. I didn't expect you to be that funny, Jake.
Okay. I didn't expect you to be that funny, Jake. Quote Kyle. All right. So Danny actually has a case. Okay. So Jorah describes his success in the tourney. And it's kind of sus because he's just suddenly really good at jousting and like almost unseats Jaime. And
the power of love.
Yeah. So like that's kind of what that's what he assumes, right? But I kind of feel like the power of love is bullshit in situations like this. Like, and I feel like George is
acidic. Okay.
And I kind of feel like, so it's actually a thing that I feel like some authors are less aware of that like differences in the skill sets of people are like pretty consistent when you have the difference between like the best in the world at something and like a dude who's pretty good at it. Like, a $2,400 chess player, like a $2,400 chess player does not just randomly beat Magnus Carlsen. Like, like there's a reason boxers
so I don't play chess, but
I'm
gonna fight you on this. Chess is a game where your skills are just like so your mental faculties are way more the thing. Fighting, so many things can go wrong.
Yeah, so I have another example. So my next example is UFC
literally,
fighting.
Jaime Lannister could have just ate a bad meal and had a little bit of indigestion and lost during that day.
Okay, so my next example is UFC fighting, right? Which also has people fighting with injuries. And like, yeah, there are upsets in the UFC, but you don't get like people go nearly undefeated for their career and they only lose to people who are like also super elite.
I think he doesn't like hate on the power of love.
He doesn't win a fluke. He beats like everyone. And then he describes it in a very sus way because, also at the bottom, also Danny's 14 drawers are great. He literally describes it for the other attorneys as the magic is gone, which obviously is just a metaphor. But I'm like, but what if it's not a metaphor? What if he actually literally was magically enhanced? Like the entire sequence was just sus.
Jacob's over here.
Yeah, like the entire thing was sus. And I think there might be something weird going on here because
I'll tell you what was going weird. That dude wanted to get laid real bad. from that specific woman, and he was like,
yeah.
I will win, and then this lady will be my wife. And he was
Lots
extra
of people,
motivated. Extra motivation.
There have been
That
lots
is-
of extra motivated people.
And maybe
in
Jorah
UFC
is
and
one
boxing.
cut. Maybe Jorah's one cut below everybody else, and then that just got him to the next cut.
I think it's pretty in keeping with Jorah's character. Dude is woman obsessed. Like, picks a woman.
And also, he
and
doesn't
It's the only
very
thing he's never
motivated.
cared about in his life is the ladies.
Very motivated.
LL Cool J. Yeah, ladies
You
love
know
Cool
what?
Jorah. Okay,
I'm
it's
sure
so long to
lots
figure out.
of people fought Habib who were really motivated by the ladies. And you know what happened? They got wrecked.
You know who did beat him though? A bear. So, well, not even. He beat the bear, but
He beat the bear.
like-
The bear was fake. That was fake.
An unhinged conversation.
Anyway, I would just like to. I would just like to consider the possibility that something sus was going on. And next time you read
Jorah's
Clash
a
of Kings,
faceless man.
when you get to this scene, I want you to just be like, you guys are there. Just consider, could there possibly something sus going on?
I think
No.
Jorah is the Night King.
Okay.
Oh, interesting. I like it. That's the sus thing that's happening.
All right. I don't have actual notes for John 2, just that Sam is great. All right, and here Armory Lorch is a massive bitch, and all his men hate him. And the reason all his men hate him is that all the people in like the Night's Watch were like behind walls with a defensible position and had nothing of wealth or value. And Armory Lorch made his men like attack those walls, and a bunch of them died. Which
Waste.
Not great.
Yeah.
like
a
that's the
waste on
thing.
both
That's like
sides.
usually that's really like he's not even good at killing random people. Like if you're gonna go around killing innocent people war style, you don't attack the place with
War
walls and
style.
swords.
Yeah, this reminds me of like in like a movie or something when they're trying to make someone be evil, and then like the villain has like he goes to like his underling and he's like, go, bring me a sandwich or whatever, and then he comes back and he's like, sir, they only had wraps, and he's like, I told you to give me a sandwich, and he just beheads the guy, and I'm like, this is the like that's labor, like you're gonna there's like the
Oh
cost
my
of training,
God.
like you can't, and that's what this is what this reminds me of.
Anyway,
I love that analogy. I will say that is a sandwich wrap analogy that I will take.
Here we have a note that show Podrick is not book Podrick. No
No.
further comments on this.
No.
And also now Tyrion, now he's got like some soldiers. He's worrying about feeding people. So you know what? It's a priority. Good job. And yeah, he thinks about how dangerous Littlefinger is, and how he framed you for the murder of Bran. And I'm like, do you want to like hand it to the king? Want to do something about it? Nope. He's very Cersei focused in his scheming. He's just like, Cersei's the threat, the other people, whatever. And it's just very Tyrion. This is going to be a recurring theme. He's describing this elaborate scheme, not telling you what his goal is, and you're like, oh, what's this elaborate scheme going to be like? What's the end? And it's like, he just wants to hook up with Shay. Okay, yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
This is a good reason to bring in Varys on your schemes and potentially like jeopardize information, because whatever.
I will say, like, speaking of Shay sucks, and I don't mean Shay sucks. Like, I mean, obviously the character sucks. I think, like, if I was to criticize Martin's characterization, I feel like Shay is like maybe one of his worst characters. Like, for just two and a half books, she's just the worst, and not like the worst. Like, I mean, Tywin is also the worst, but like everything Tywin does is interesting.
How dare you?
How
How
dare
dare
you?
you?
Know what I mean? You know what I mean. But I just mean like, and I'm like, Shay just like sucks. Like, she's so boring. She sucks so much. She's worse than Bran. Shut up,
I
Ken.
agree with that. Shay is a very uninteresting character, but Tywin is delightful in all things. So
Yeah, I think that was
I don't know about that. I think I'm
Okay.
a villain in real life, Laura.
So, drinking game.
Anita.
Anita, Shay is the I guess the whore that Tyrion gets obsessed with.
it's not, I guess. That's straight up what she is. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Every time Bran is almost a man grown, drink. Try
Fair.
and survive. Like, it literally
I will
comes up in
die.
every Bran chapter. It's so consistent.
I will say,
I
though,
think
that's
it was
very...
a bet. I think George had a bet. I think he bet someone that he can fit in Bran almost being a man grown in every Bran chapter in the Clash of Kings. And that's what I think happened.
I think kids just always want to know that they're almost an adult. I just think it's very like Bran's like, I'm not 9. I'm 9 in 3 months and 2 days and 12 hours. Like, I think that's what it's like.
I
And
mean,
then
maybe.
Here
I think
actually,
it's
Lewin
interesting,
bothered
though.
me a little because he was
Yeah.
like, "Must I come fetch you as if you were a little child?" And then like half a page later, it's like, "You're still a child, no talking." And I'm like, "Okay, so is he a kid or not?" Like,
Yeah.
he's
Yeah.
like, it's fine whichever. Actually, it's not fine whichever you want to go with. He definitely is still a kid. Like, and he shouldn't be talking here. Like, that's valid. But like, can you at least be consistent, please? All right. Bran.
While you guys were talking, a crow outside my window just like started.
There's some bird somewhere, and I definitely
Yeah,
heard
like
it,
he
so-
literally was
Raven.
just like squawking, and I was like, "That is like we're talking about Bran. That's kind of creepy."
That was your
Raven.
love bomb invitation arriving. That has since been revoked.
She did send a raven. That's good.
There you go.
Alcohol poisoning? Wait, what was related to alcohol poisoning?
From how much you're consuming from the.
Oh
childhood.
yeah. You'll die. You'll die. You'll die. If you
I
take
don't
it
live in the wild, Anita. There's just a crow war going on outside my house for the last few days. I don't know what's been going on, but there's 2 crows that live in this tree, and then 2 crows that like don't live in that tree, and they've just been fighting, like legitimately fighting on the street. It's been wild.
I love it.
Okay.
I will say though, in regards to the Bran thing, I do find it interesting that they kind of harp on that for Bran, whereas Arya and Sansa are expected to basically be coping like adults. And
Guess what? Mira is almost a woman grown. It comes up specifically. Bran thinks to himself that Mira is a woman grown. So,
oh man, there you go.
Okay, so Sansa 2 is a really good chapter. That's the one where Boros comes to help Sansa, and I feel like it's actually like pretty thematically relevant for Song of Ice and Fire because Sansa is like, I want my knight in shining armor, and I think it's very George to have the knight who's, not in shining armor, and he ends up dropping the ball like pretty badly. But hey, at least he's actually like all the knights in like this is in the same chapter. It starts with the knights in shining armor beating her, and then the knight really not in shining armor, like at this point at least trying to get her out of King's Landing. Yes.
Sorry, we're just both getting upset with Anita for being here. I mean, I'm glad you're here, Anita, but I don't understand why you're here asking us who everybody is.
Yeah,
I'm happy to have you, Anita.
We love you.
Like, she just recently was like, "Oh, I'm actually gonna like read the books," and then she's like, "I guess I'll just spoil myself on them first."
Oh, jeez, Anita, just read them. Just read them.
Anyway. Arya 5, I was like, do we ever hear from Weasel again? Now I barely remember who Weasel is. Whatever.
What? Weasel's the little girl. She runs off into the forest.
Oh, yeah. Do we ever hear from her again?
We do not hear from Weasel again, but the series isn't over. She's Azor Ahai.
What?
I just said the series isn't over. I'm sure Weasel will come back at some point, but no, we haven't seen her again.
And
she
then
could be one of the kids at the inn with Gendry, though.
It's possible.
And also, Arya just got the worst luck of running into a banner. Like, she runs into a banner, and the person tries to describe it's the Clegane banner, if I remember correctly, right? Yeah. That's like if you were to rank them from best to worst, like if a Stark banner was the best, I think Clegane is maybe literally the worst option there.
That or Lannister.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would want to see the Brave Companions banner.
Fair.
That'd be pretty bad as well. Okay, and then Tyrion. Okay, I have Cersei's funniest trait is she believes that if she were a man, she would just solve all the problems. Like it would be like she would conquer the world. She would make herself emperor. Like it'd be like dragons. I'll take those out. Like nothing would be a problem at all.
Cersei has a very big inflated self-importance in this book. I feel like until Blackwater, I think we're kind of disillusioned a little bit at Blackwater.
Yeah. And Tyrion does do some good preparing. He was getting the people to practice with all the clay pots and like moving them around in preparation for having wildfire, which I thought showed quite good foresight. So, Tyrion does some questionably intelligent things in this book, but he also
does a lot of what he does.
Tyrion does a lot of really good stuff in this book.
Yeah, he does a lot of really clever things and also a lot of like ignoring Littlefinger and scheming and having like these long elaborate schemes to just go hook up.
He doesn't really ignore Littlefinger. Like he doesn't treat him as big of a problem as he should.
Yeah.
No.
But there's like reasons, like he uses him to get the I want to say that.
So my
Tyrells.
is that Tyrion would actually be like, he's better at the generaling and preparing for the war than he is at the Game of Thrones aspect. Like,
I disagree.
I
think he's a great Hand of the King. In fact, I think he's such a good Hand of the King. Like, my conspiracy theory is that Dan and Dave didn't read the 4th and 5th book because they're fucking morons. But they liked Tyrion as the Hand so much in Clash of Kings that they were just like, he just has to be the Hand. And then they wrote him being Dany's hand. And then they're like, we don't know how to be good at this because we're idiots. And then, you know.
I'm not saying he wasn't good at the Hand. I think he was actually just like really exceptional at the preparation for Blackwater, which it's possible that was like his main job as the Hand for that. So you could make the case that like, you know, he would have been just as exceptional if there was.
I do think that it's intersectional for those two things, but when you look at his father, it's not surprising. Like, it's not at all surprising.
Also, like, you don't think it was pretty cool how he tricked them to find who the rat was? Like,
that was good.
That's
and then Scotland stole that in Republic of Thieves. So that's how.
Do you guys subscribe to the theory that Tyrion is a Targaryen, or do you think that he is?
I'm undecided. Get back to me when I'm done my reread of it.
I don't like. I understand why it's a popular theory, and then like I could easily see it. Most of the like big theories fall into the same category for me, which is just that like I could see it, I could also not see it, and both are fine. One of the reasons that I am not like so angry at other people when they like dismantle my theories is that like I just am not really attached to many theories. There's like 3 that I care about, and most of them I'm just like whatever.
Sir Jorah was magically enhanced by Quaithe.
That's one you care.
I just threw Quaithe in there. I don't even know what
the Gravedigger, the Grand Northern Conspiracy, and Fagon are the only 3. And I guess, you know, John's mom is also still technically a theory. But those are like the only ones.
It's not a theory.
Donas is in that.
So I now have the funniest thing ever is going to be when Winds of Winter has Rick on POVs.
That'll never happen.
Like, we're going to get to Rickon 1, and everyone's going to be like, are you fucking kidding me, George? Really? Stop it.
Never going to happen.
Bran literally lists all his siblings, and he includes Rickon. And then later, he's like, and now everyone I just listed is gone. And I'm like, bro, that's just not true. Like, Rickon is just straight up, like,
ignored.
Not there half the time. Hey, he's the horse. Yeah.
Zin is against the RLJ theory.
What?
That's what I was saying. I was like, he's not into it.
This would be funny, but I don't think it's true.
I agree with this though. I think it would be like more thematic irony that like if Tyrion was the only actual Lannister. But I don't think it's true.
That would be very funny. I did think it's definitely like the most common way for him to be a Lannister is that he's the Mad King's bastard, right?
Yeah. I think I am in team Tyrion Targaryen. Like that's
I'm not attached
where
to
I land
on that one.
But I see like Kyle was saying, I'm not married to the idea completely. I think it's very possible that it's either one.
Also, I said this was a more eventful Bran chapter. What literally happened in this chapter? I didn't say that. I think I was coping here. That's why there's the I guess, and it's following 2 Bran chapters where shit all happens. So.
I think this is when Mira and Jojen show up, right? Or do they show up?
So.
Maybe they show up at the very end because I think in the next one it's like it's nice that Bran has friends now.
Relatively, yes.
Regardless, Mira and Jojen showing up and reciting their oath is super cool.
Yeah.
I love Mira and Jojen. I love them.
Okay.
Also, like Wyman Manderly's in that chapter, if it's the right chapter, and so you don't know yet that he's secretly the biggest badass in Westeros, but
great.
He is. So
he's great.
Okay.
Jake's sitting here like, who's that?
Brienne's introduction. I love this, and you know why I love because when Catelyn comes up, like. Loras gets this title and backstory and description of like how he moves differently from everyone else, and Bran is just like the dude in blue armor, and it's like then Bran kicks Loras' ass because she's way cooler. But I love how in Brienne's introduction she's treated as like seen as the less important person by the narrator, and like if you just read that like. Going in blind, the expectation would be that like, oh, Loras Tyrell, who we've heard a bunch, is going to become like this really important character, and oh yeah, whatever, here's this extra who's wearing blue armor. I love that introduction. That is all.
I love it too, and I love that you get it from Catelyn. I just
Catelyn, don't waver.
I know it's Catelyn, but my whole thing that I love about Brienne is, and this kind of comes back into that greater conversation when people like to argue that George doesn't write women characters well, and I'm like, no. Brienne is the perfect example of writing female characters well. Like being the awkward, feeling like you don't fit in your body, you don't feel like you fit into the role that you want, life's ascribed a certain role for you because of your gender. Like she's amazing. I love reading Brienne. She's so good. Or about Brienne.
What do you think of my comment that Renly fumbles the bag maybe more than any other A Song of Ice and Fire character?
I mean,
he's not Balon Greyjoy.
Not accurate.
So.
Yeah, but Balon never had a chance. Like
Renly, that's
Renly,
not true. He had a chance to not lose more.
Okay, he never had a chance to achieve his goals. You show up Renly here. He's got this ridiculously huge army. If he'd just marched quickly on King's Landing and not been hosting tourneys constantly,
Renly is an idiot. Like Renly is straight up an idiot.
I agree with you. However, I'm gonna say something that seems unrelated. I used to work as a bar back in a nightclub, and there was security there. And sometimes there would be brawls. And what would happen is a bunch of really big drunk dudes would start fighting with the really giant security Viking-esque guys. And I would just be a barback. And then one of them would jump on the back of one of them. They would just be like tearing each other up. And if I had just ran in there and just punched one of them in the mouth and not expected to get my ass beaten, that's what Balon Greyjoy's doing. So he's pretty dumb is what I'm saying.
Renly is the equivalent of then this if it's a bunch of small people and you've got this giant dude who also brought all his giant friends showed up and is just clearly in the best starting position and then does fuck all with it and then gets wrecked.
Renly doesn't know how to. Renly, I think in theory would have been the most benevolent of the Baratheon brothers to be ruler, but would have been the least competent in many ways.
Yes.
Yeah, he talks a lot about how great of a king he would be. That's half of the things he says would be I will be just, while also at the same time being firm. And it's dude, you're actually a random 21-year-old dude. Shut up.
I agree. I think Stannis,
I like Renly. I don't know.
He just fumbled
he should
so
be
hard.
A king. But,
he had he had an army nearly 100,000 strong. He had the support
sure,
of the Vale, the Stormlands, and the Reach simultaneously, near unanimously.
Well, they're the Knights
but
of
it's
Summer,
Renly.
Which, by the way, I criticize Catelyn a lot, but I really like when she's sitting there with Randall Tarley and Mathis Rohan and Lady Oakheart, and they're just these stupid kids. They don't know what's going on yet, and they're all just youth. I'm I just think that's a really good conversation.
It is.
Anyway.
And that's why it highlights the difference dramatically between Stannis and Renly, because Stannis isn't doing anything like that. He's sacrificing people on a beach. He's making his stake.
Or obviously the comparison Catelyn makes is Robb, who's doing shit.
Yeah.
Oh,
Robb.
Okay. Jon not eating any of Craster's food to not be a guest.
Can you see my face, by the way, with this comment? Or
yes.
There we go.
It's a little bit, there's some kind of translucent stuff going on for a little bit, but we can still see it. Can I can I swap you and Kyle? There we go. there we go.
Gone forever.
Oh yeah. I mean, Robb with that army would just be a cheat code. Thing is, Robb wouldn't use it. He'd just be I just want the North, bro. It's chill. I'm doing my thing. I'll take the Riverlands as well.
Can you just deliver me Joffrey and then I'll go home?
Yeah,
pretty much. That would have been Robb's MO for the most part.
Yeah, he would have just gone immediately and not had hey, yeah, we're marching on King's Landing. So are we gonna have 17 or 18 tourneys on our way?
Yeah.
Okay. And how many feasts?
I feel Robb too, Jaime and Joffrey. He would have required bope of them being dead. Maybe Tywin.
It would have just been yeah, Joffrey's got to go. Give me my siblings back.
Yeah.
But honestly, if they were just like giving my siblings back and Joffrey's got it, it's like, yeah, whatever. You can do whatever you want. I'm gonna chill in the north. Good luck attacking Moat Cailin.
Moat Cailin.
Okay, so how does Jon not eat it? What did you guys? This was a cool detail I'd totally forgotten about, and I like that Jon deliberately doesn't do it. How are we on the magical guest right theory? Are we there?
I think Bookborn is just having a bunch of copium. So,
see, that's what I thought, and then I reread A Clash of Kings.
I never read into that, honestly, but I mean, there's weird stuff with Craster. Like, there's just weird stuff with Craster. So, it's
would
possible.
you say he certainly is a character of all time? Of all the
Barely.
people in A Song of Ice and Fire, he's definitely one of them.
I will say, like, going in the storm here, I loved when Craster died, only to then be like immediately crestfallen because then we lose Lord Commander Mormont right after.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, George, you couldn't even let me be happy for one chapter.
No.
So,
it's a very bittersweet loss at that point.
Yeah, it is. Because Jorah's super cool.
He's
way better than Jorah because he doesn't creep on 14-year-olds.
Okay, here's the thing also with that. Did you guys... one of my big criticisms of George, it's probably my biggest criticism of George, is that I don't feel he writes language appropriate for children. Like, Bran and Arya and Sansa shouldn't be talking the way that they do because of the age that they are. I forget so frequently with Daenerys because of the themes that are happening around her and the way that she speaks. I'm like, oh yeah, she's like an adult.
I mean, aging her up in the show made sense because she acts a lot like.
Right, but even in the book,
I think all of his ages are just weird. Like ridiculous. But that being said, I think it's worse for like people that are sexually active. Like, I mean, Daenerys just should have been older. Like, and I also think I think she does act her age. Like, especially like later on. Like, I mean, when she's just like having sex with Dario and just like being absurd. Like, I'm like, yeah, teenagers act absurd and they're all hormonal and stuff. But I think Arya and Bran are like pretty age appropriate a lot of the time. I think it's impossible to like, as a 50 or 60-year-old man, to like write what a child would actually think because it's just not. You're not there.
It's not that hard. It like spend some time around them, and it's not that hard.
I know, but I don't think her dialogue, like their dialogue, is like over the top. Like Arya talks pretty basic. Her like understanding of the world is pretty black and white. Like she doesn't. I think this is a you thing. I think
there's also
it's not a me thing. I've talked to many people about it, and it's not just me.
Oh yeah, like I think you're overblowing it, is what I mean. Like,
so
I don't think.
How dare you?
I think the kids do talk and think more childlike than the adults. I think he just sometimes underestimates like how young 9 is.
Yeah,
like,
and that's kind of what I'm saying.
Which is why the show, the show I think aged them up.
They had to age them up.
Yeah, for legal reasons.
Bran acts really young.
Yeah, like there's the scene early in here where he's just like randomly howling at people and asking everyone random questions that there's no way they know the answer to, and I'm like, hey. 8-year-old. I'm sentencing Theon Greyjoy to 18 bonks because he has to go to horny jail.
What a place to be.
Oh, here I got it. I don't know, Balon. Maybe if you didn't want Theon to be raised by Eddard, you shouldn't have got your ass handed to you by Robert Baratheon. Like, come on, dude. That's on you.
Robert.
All right, and then like even Asha is not like, hey, my brother's back. So Tyrion is an arrogant ass, and Asha here does like the joke, like flirts with Theon a bunch, and then is like, I'm actually your sister, and it's like
awful. It's awful.
It's like, okay, yeah, like Theon is being obnoxious here, but also you absolutely flirted this. Like, what? It's Theon. What do you expect to happen?
Yeah, weird scene.
Anyway, all the Greyjoys, like Theon is the least annoying Greyjoy at this point, which is.
At this point, yes.
I don't know about that. I'd still think.
I mean, we only know 3 at this point in the book.
Asha's less annoying than Theon.
Okay, that might be true.
That's probably accurate.
I'm just so annoyed. Like, imagine if you didn't see your sibling for like 11 years.
I'm not saying like, her decision isn't weird. I think it's super weird.
Super weird.
I think Asha generally treating her younger brother coming back after being gone for like a decade because he was a hostage after a war is more weird than being generally a completely arrogant doof.
That's true.
Like that's
But,
more Asha's more uniquely annoying. Like there's a lot of
yeah.
arrogant sexist doofs
sure.
out there. Most people don't
That's another thing
flirt with
for
their
Theon
brother
to
after
cry
they've
about.
known for 11 years.
He's not as uniquely annoying as his sister.
He's more basically annoying.
Anyway, and I'd kind of forgotten like that. I think 14-year-old me didn't get it as much and was like, "Ha, Theon's annoying." Like, but everyone around, like his entire family, treats him so unfairly, which kind of gets him the sympathy, even though he's so annoying himself. Also watches on the wall.
My husband is cheering what you just said somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, okay, Josh. Well, you slept through it, so you missed your chance. Okay, then I have legitimately a scene I'd completely forgot about, and the show cuts that I think is like one of the best scenes in the book, which is when Tyrion shows up to tell Cersei that Stannis like laid siege to Storm's End, and they just like start laughing about it. And Cersei starts tries to like interrupt Tyrion, and Tyrion is just like laughing, and he's just like, no, just wait. He's attacking Storm's End, and then he poisons her, which is also funny.
I always like their dynamic. It's one of the things that I really, really love in the books and the show is the dynamic between Cersei and Tyrion. It's very well done.
I feel like this chapter starts like which is why it's the best Tyrion. This is like Tyrion at the peak of his powers. You know, this is like he kind of becomes more asshole-ish. This is where he gets the mountaintop, and then he stays at the mountaintop for like a few more chapters in this book.
Yeah,
but this might be peak Tyrion in terms of as like a hand of the king, in terms of being like true to himself, I guess.
Yeah, people like to forget that book Tyrion is not a very nice person. I think we've conflated him with show Tyrion quite a bit
in some ways. All right, and then we get to Arya 6. This is where she comes up with like her list of names. And I have the note that this book is really starting to cook. Before this, I was like, I think I'm liking this less than a Game of Thrones this time, which was really weird. I didn't know how I felt about that. But I'm like, all right, this starting to cook. All right, I have a quick. How big is Qarth relative to big Westeros cities?
Qarth is big, but I don't know because I don't give a shit about Qarth. So
the greatest city that was or ever will be. How dare you?
I will say, whenever somebody says Qarth, it reminds me of how in the show Daenerys like meets the people, and she actually Jake is gonna. This is a Jake thing to do, which is that they come up and they're like, "Welcome to Qarth," and then she's like, "Thank you for letting me come to Qarth," and then he's like, "Qarth, it's a K." It's a K sound. And I'm like, she would never do that because she has never seen it written. But maybe she's just like Jake and she just forgets immediately.
Realistic character writing.
It's possible. But I find it interesting because it starts to build up the stuff for the House of the Undying, which I love.
So I think I decided while reading it this time that I think the existence of Qarth and like the Yeti Emperor and everything that we're never going to see is kind of cool. Just like the alluding to like, hey, this might actually be like a bigger, more populous, more centric place than like your entire story that you've got going. And just the allusions to that are quite cool. We're going to get some comments about the Sorrowful Men later. They even got their own assassins, but their assassins are like kind of pathetic compared to Faceless Men. But you know what? We're going to get to that. So there's this random traitor who tells Dany that Robert is dead, and I really want him to show up again.
He does.
He does? Cool. I'll look forward to that. What book does he show up in again? Do you know this off the top of your head? Feast? Fantastic. Yeah. I'm looking forward to it. I hope he actually gets some kind of reward. Because Dany promised him a reward. I feel like he's going to not get a great reward. Green.
Do you remember this traitor's name?
No.
Me either, but I do remember the scene he pops back up in. So
I don't remember.
Get to it and just assume it's a different character. So
okay. See, this is where Bran says Marine is almost 16, a woman grown. Drink, that counts. It's nice that Marine, like, he actually has friends in this chapter. In the first 3 chapters, it's just like the phrase, and he doesn't really get along with any of them. And it's nice that, like, you know, he gets to experience friendship, and nothing happens again, but whatever.
Are you saying Mira and it's coming across as Marine, like the city?
You did say Marine.
Okay, I do know how to say Mira. That one was just a
Okay, I'm just trying to make sure because we just were talking about Daenerys.
I know,
so I want to be
sure. Lewin is still so convinced magic stuff doesn't exist, and like
I love Lewin.
I'm gonna defend my boy Lewin a bunch.
I love him
later, but he's so confidently wrong about magic, and it's like if people in our world are confident about their no magic, that kind of makes sense because we have no evidence of magic ever. Like, it's a fact that magic kind of exists or did exist in Westeros. Like, you'd think there'd be some doubt that, like, hey, you know, maybe.
I get it though, because the Maesters I would almost classify as like the atheists of Westeros in that they're science based. Like they're the academics, the intellectuals. Like they're gonna lean into, you know, the tangible stuff as opposed to
they never use like a glass candle and like
you know.
I'll be right back. I'm just running the bathroom.
Yeah.
Okay.
So my whole thing for that is that's how I justify it, in that he went to a place where he was mostly based in science and rooted in science. Like he's not looking to gods for answers and stuff like that.
It's just like, bro, at some point, if magical seeming things keep happening, you gotta go like, shit.
Right?
Maybe there be magic, folks. I mean, there was magic in the past, definitively. Like, just let's consider it. Let's just consider it.
I think that's one of those things, too, that people just get so set in their ways that they're like, well, why would it come back? You know, it's been gone for so long, so why would it come back?
So my problem with this, and this, I think this is true of some Maesters. I don't think this is true of Lewin. I think Lewin does. I don't think Lewin would deliberately lead Bran astray. I think that's.
I agree.
Like, I think if you read that, like, that's a pretty wild reading of Lewin. That, like, Lewin in the back of his head is like, ah, yes, these actually are magic dreams, but I shall trick this 8-year-old. It's like, nah.
No.
I don't buy that. I buy it for a lot of Maesters. And then
Lewin's a good guy.
Yeah,
Lewin's a good guy. Yeah, if you want to read about the bad Maesters, you read Fire and Blood. That's what you do.
Or like later books.
Or later books, but yeah.
Okay, okay, we got the Tyrion thing. Yeah, whatever. The zebras. What the hell is going on with the zebras?
Yeah, I don't quite know.
Elantris over Words of Radiance is a much worse take than Feast over Storm. Moving on. Yeah, this is somewhat. Yes, they like Elantris more than Words of Radiance. It's baffling. Don't question it. I sent them to jail already. They're writing this from prison.
Good.
Yeah, I mean, I think he, in his study of his Valyrian steel link, was like, you know, but
it's history to him at that point.
Yeah,
like it's history. So it's not an active thing.
So this is what I want. If you really go read the interactions with Lewin and Bran and come back to me and say that Lewin is deliberately lying to Bran here.
No, he's not.
Like that's.
He's straight up not.
It's a wild take. Okay, Kyle, what the hell's going on with the zebra? Are they zebra?
It's a Zorse, isn't it?
It's a Zorse. At first time I was like, what the?
I'm pretty sure Zorses are real things.
Zorses are real things?
Yeah, it's like a horse and a zebra. Like they can't breed. It's like a mule, like you know, like a donkey.
Okay.
Like they're very not well talked about or anything. But I will say, in this awesome edition of Storm of Swords that I just got, there is an illustration of
is it folio?
Yeah, the folio. It has Varga Hort on his horse.
This is a good question. Is Tyrek Lannister? No, he was last seen. He wasn't last seen a Zorse. He was last seen a horse. It was pretty. The theory falls apart if it's a Zorse.
The text is irrefutable on this.
Yes. I completely agree. I'm googling a lot of images of Zorses, and I have to say they look more like normal colored horses with stripes, not quite zebra colored, but that's okay.
I'm just going to respond to Samwise here and say
Yeah.
Enjoying Elantris more than Words of Radiance is without a doubt
Yeah, that's what I said.
more of a crime than
It's
enjoying
way
Things for
crazy.
Crows.
We
Like,
had
it's
this
not, like,
conversation while you were gone. Yeah,
I know.
it's
I'm
fine.
sure you did, but I just have to double down because liking Elantris more than Words of Radiance is one of the craziest takes I've ever seen. I respect the crazy.
Yeah, I respect being true to yourself, but also, as I said on Alan's Discord, go be true to yourself in prison because that's where you need to go for that day. Yeah, it's like he might. I think he believes in the
Maester
heart.
Lewin. Sorry,
Yeah.
This is how big of a nerd I am. I was thinking of Lewin Martell based on how he spelled it, which like
Oh, jeez.
I'm not being pedantic about it. I actually went to Lewin Martell. So I thought like on the Trident, there was a scene that I totally forgot where he tried to get to a heart tree. And I'm like, wait, how does he know about this? But I see what you're saying now.
But I mean, the heart trees, I feel like, are less of a thing than him being like actually believing that Jojen did have a prophetic dream, that a bunch of really bad stuff was going to happen to Winterfell, including him, and that they were all in grave danger. Because if he believes this dream, if he's like, oh, a green seer is seeing that we're going to drown and these people are going to die shortly, you then have to tell me, including himself, you then have to tell me, and like the kids that he's raised from birth, you then have to tell me that he's now going to deliberately ignore this information and not try and prevent their deaths, which I'm going to be honest, I think that's like, if that's the case, that's a plot hole, not a theory.
Yeah.
Like, that's like, oh, George fucked up. This is a mistake, if that's the case.
I think, too, there's a difference between faith and magic. Like, those aren't, they're not interchangeable.
Also, I think possibly when you're near death, you're possibly more open to belief in the heart tree.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think Lewin trying to like trick Bran just holds up.
Do we know where Lewin is from originally? Is he from the north?
We do not know.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
Or we do know, I forgot, but I'm pretty sure we don't know.
I didn't think we did.
We could Google it right now. All right, you're a research guy, Kyle. Okay. Arya 7 was bars. The final line is, "I'm the ghost of Harrenhal," she thought, and that night there was one less name to hate. Just absolutely.
First of all,
bars.
Insanely good. Did you ever listen to Arya's prayer when I posted it? It was like a rap song.
I don't know.
I posted it. Okay. I'm going to resend it to you, and I'll send it to you too, Laura. So when they did season 2 of the show, they did like a mixtape, Catch the Throne. And a lot of it was like, they paid Busta Rhymes $1 million or something to be like, I need power or whatever. Like, and just to say the word Game of Thrones. But one guy, Dominic Omega, like, he wrote a song called Arya's Prayer. And he was clearly like a fan of the books too. And he wrote a whole song about Arya's plotline up until the end of Clash of Kings. And it's a banger song.
Awesome.
And, that sounds good.
And yeah, like, there's just a part about the Ghost and Harrenhal part.
Yeah.
That's an appropriate take, Samwise. Your first one, not so much. This one, yes.
It's arguably the best Tyrion and Arya book. Those are the two characters where I'm like, maybe this is the best book from this character.
I like Arya more in Storm of Swords, but I can see
the argument
either way.
Yeah. I think for me, Arya is Storm or Clash.
I like Dany better in this book than I do in Storm.
Oh, I think Storm's my favorite.
We do not know where Lewin came from.
Okay. I didn't think so.
We only know that he replaced the old Maester.
So I don't remember what negotiate. I guess it's with Renly about like.
Yes.
Oh no, this was between
Peach
Renly and Stannis. Yeah, the peach scene.
It's such a good scene. Oh, it's so good.
Incredible
I love
scene.
that.
Yeah.
So good.
And then I posted the quote on Discord just without context of like, I'm gonna like go to my grave thinking of my brother's peach, Stannis Baratheon, which aged very funny in context, but that happens to the best of us.
That seems incredible.
Okay, this is a stanza trait I love in this book. I love that her lies where she's just like, I just want to love Joffrey and I hate my traitor brothers. I like that her lies are so extreme that like everyone knows she's lying and everyone knows she actually does hate them.
Yeah,
if she tried to lie subtly, like people might believe it, but she's just like, I'm going to lie.
I heard it, Kyle. I
heard it. Or as I'll say for season 6, Sandra, Lady Sandra.
Oh God, yeah.
Lady Sandra's a Bolton. Anyway, Comments? Anyone? Hey, and they switch which guard beat her. Which King's
I mean, I think she's doing her best at this point.
Yeah.
She's just doing her best.
I'm gonna be totally honest with you. I was focused on Stan's.
I'm not gonna lie either. So was I for like the first
Okay.
half.
I'm really, really sorry, Drake.
Hey, he just called me Drake, by the way. Did anyone hear that?
Drake. I did call you Drake.
This is going off the rails, guys. This is not great.
You know what? Talking is hard. All right,
It is hard. Thank you.
We've been doing it almost for an hour and a half, so it's definitely catching up with us.
Anyway,
But I will
I
say
was
in
saying-
regards to this, I think it's appropriate because Sansa doesn't know what else to do, you know, and like, what is someone gonna say to her? Like, no, you're lying. It's like, no,
Yeah.
it's, you know.
But
it's just gonna be
I like how she's doing it in a way that like it's still making it really obvious that she hates everyone. You know, it's kind of like get red. Like she still gets to kind of say like, yeah,
almost
I
like
hate
she's a
you.
kid.
almost,
Her-
almost, but not quite.
Oh, and then I'm crapping on Renly because I'm like, duty flows uphill and down. Renly, because he's kind of like, I'm gonna be so good as a king. It's like whatever. He probably would have been okay, but
Again, I think he would have been the best to the like average person, but it would have been chaos. It would have been absolute chaos. I don't think he would have had a handle on things at all.
yeah,
Stannis.
I think he would have. Stannis
Well,
probably
Mace
would have
Tyrell would
been.
have been his hand, so that would have been, you know, a big
I-
thing.
There's a case that Stannis, just from being less of a massive, like less incompetent, would have a more stable
Oh.
rule, and so that would be better for
Yeah.
the common people because stability is pretty important if you're. a
Yeah,
random
I mean, in
person.
terms of just like kindness, I feel
Oh,
like
yeah.
that's Renly. But Stannis, without question, of the
Would have been
three
the best,
Baratheon
yeah,
brothers,
by far.
should have been king, without question.
And he is.
Yes, he is. Yes,
Well, in
along
the
with
future
4
edition-
others in this.
Yeah, yeah, but one of them
the
doesn't
rightful
count.
king.
Yeah.
Yeah. Guess what? One of them doesn't count. He's the clown meme surrounded by souls. These fucking Greyjoys. That dude, honestly, like per page, might be the most unlikable character in the Song of Ice and Fire. Like you don't get enough pages for him to be the most unlikable generally, but this is the last one. I
think the mountain is.
I don't know his personality. I just know he's evil.
Well, that
That's
is his
personality.
personality.
He gets
Balon has.
migraines, he rapes, and he's evil. And the
He's
second
so
one is kind of
evil
the
that
first
I
and third
don't
one.
think of him as a person. Balon is just like actually has distinctly like unique, dislikable and thought patterns to him. So I think I hate Balon more.
I think the mountain does too, and I
think
think
the- I
Kyle
think
just
the
listed
mountain-
why.
The
Yeah,
mountain takes his brother's face and just puts it in a fire.
yeah, the mountain's more evil. He's a worse. I'm not even who's
mean-
worse.
He's
I
not
think I hate
on-
Balon more.
He's not on page very often either.
Yeah.
No.
Oh, that's true. He
He's
gets even
actually
less page time.
he's actually in like 3 chapters. Like
Yeah.
he's very little in the books. Maybe
I think
4
it's more that
chapters.
he's thought
Is it?
about rather
Yeah,
than
he's
being
thought about a lot.
actively present.
Would you
Yeah.
say it's an outrage that Balon Greyjoy stole the name from the far superior Balon?
Yes, actually, because people, when you say Balon, they think of this. There's like an intrinsic disgust mechanism because of Greyjoy, and it's unfortunate.
Whose Night's Watch cloak was this? He finds like the horn and the dragon glass wrapped in like a Night's Watch cloak. Do
We don't know.
whose that is?
I think Benjen's
Ambiguous.
being one is like a possibility, but I think it's also just like likely to be really old and just left there by some sort of Night's Watch guard.
Like, watch-
So
That's how I always read it. It wasn't a connection to anyone that they knew. It was just a find.
By the way, next is a Bran chapter. Is going on. We're gonna zoom through the Bran chapter here. Okay, yeah,
Good.
Bran,
I'm ready.
Iron One's done out there. That's my note. And then I'm like, oh, I answered my own question. I'm like, oh, she's attached to the Sansa Draw for marriage, and then I'm like, oh yeah, prophecy about the younger queen, whatever. Hey, and I messaged Dagmar Cleftjaw, was extremely cool. And this I think is. I give Theon a lot of shit, and he overextends here. It's a pretty smart plan. Like it's
Theon's
actually a
plan
pretty
is
cool
really
plan.
smart, and it goes really well. He just gets too much hubris. He should have exactly what Asha says later. He should have taken the princes and
Aw.
left.
Look at that orange
And-
cat.
Yes.
How many
Nice.
brain cell? Did you get the orange cap brain cell today?
Oh, there's if there's one.
Yeah. I think the rule is they get the brain cell for 4 minutes a day. No, 4 minutes a week, sorry.
Yeah,
And
that's
my
right.
sister has like an orange cat, and I think we determined, sadly, their brain cell is Thursday at 3:30 a.m., so it's not that useful.
I've always had a beige orange cat, and my one before him is one of the smartest animals I've ever had, but he was definitely an outlier. Like, definitely.
Bro was hogging all the brain cells from all the other orange cats.
Pretty much, yeah. This one.
Hi.
I've never had an orange cat, so I cannot comment. But I do love cats, so
You're missing out. Oranges are the best.
But also another thing, Kyle. So he should have just taken Winterfell and then bailed. The other thing is none of the other Ironborn commit to it. Like, none of the other Ironborn. It's also possible that if the other Ironborn weren't like still bitter against Theon because he got raised in Winterfell, and we're like, oh shit, we got Winterfell. Like that they could have held it.
I think holding it is strategically stupid. Like they said, all of their power comes from the sea. They don't have a really good way to like get to Winterfell to restock it.
True.
It just like strategically doesn't really work for them.
It's so poorly planned. The whole thing is so poorly planned.
But yeah, he could have just taken, I guess, Rickon and Bran. It's also like such a defensible castle, though.
Yes.
I guess it's like I was comparing it to like in the olden days, like Harren the Black setting up like Harrenhal, but they were way more powerful in terms of army size at the time. But there is precedent for them having a really big ass castle. And Winterfell, I'm going to bring this up later. Winterfell and Harrenhal get like kind of contrasted a lot in this book later, like pretty deliberately, I think. Okay, here I'm like, all right, Arya, you're a kid. And like, I get you hate Whis more, but you could have said Tywin Lannister. And then like a page later, she's like, Lord Tywin. Why didn't I say Lord Tywin? And I was like, all right, fair play. You realize that. There's an alternate reality where Arya was like, oh, you meant literally anyone, and was just like Joffrey, Cersei, Tywin.
Yeah. It's almost like she's a kid.
Yeah, she's a kid. Yeah, acting like a kid here, wouldn't you say?
I won't accept this theory. I won't.
So I was wrong here. I'd forgotten what happens in the battle, but it actually kind of goes well. But I really
the Edmure stuff.
Yeah.
Oh man, I can't look at any of Zin's comments because I'm gonna go into a rage. I am known as a big Edmure defender when I'm actually not. It's just because he is unfairly maligned. A, in this chapter, B, in this series, and C, by the fans. And that's just because like you're in Catelyn's perspective, and Catelyn is an arrogant loser that's just like, my little brother could never think anything better than my dumbass son. Edmure did great. He did everything he was supposed to do.
I was wrong.
Robb fucks up and doesn't tell his Lord Paramount of the fucking secondary kingdom. This is like ranking only. Edmure is his number 2. Like I know like Robb doesn't consider him his number 2, but in terms of actual standing, Edmure's his number 2. Just leaves this guy in the dark and then gets mad at him for having a victory and protecting his people. Absolutely ridiculous all the way around. And people only buy that because it's in Catelyn's perspective, and she's just like, oh yeah, my dumb kid is always in the right. Fuck your dumb kid, man.
Yeah.
I think also because he's compared to the Blackfish. Like that's our standard for the Tullys. And then we look at Edmure and we're like, you know.
And also I think the way Edmure does talk about things like, and the lack of experience, it does like when you don't have domain knowledge on something, you can kind of instinctively tell when like they're feeling a little more sketchy about this than like they're coming across.
Mm-hmm.
I think Edmure also got lucky. He could have easily lost. I don't think he's like some military genius. I'm just saying that like to get mad at him for like not knowing all of the plan and just like responding how he should have is just, you know, kind of ridiculous.
Here I get to the sorrowful men, and I'm like, what the hell? I don't remember these at all. They're like, they always say sorry before they kill someone. It's like
they're Canadians. Leave it alone.
But maybe everyone east of Qarth is like terrified of sorrowful men, and they think faceless men ain't shit. And they're like, yeah, whatever. Faceless men, nah. Those are the Walmart sorrowful men. They don't even apologize before you kill you because they can't, because they lack.
It's a group of Canadians in the desert. Move along. That's all you need to know.
You know, randomly remember right now that the first time I read Clash of Kings, I remember being really confused at what happened when Dany gets attacked by a Sorrowful Man, because I had just forgotten that piece of world building, because, you know, there's way more important things to remember. And then, like, some guy just, like, apologizes to her, and then, like, he turns around, and then, like,
They literally say it's
there.
Yeah, someone literally says it's a Sorrowful Man, yeah.
Yeah, afterwards they explain it, but in the moment, and then Barristan's there, and then he attacks the Scorpion. It just took me a really long time to like figure out what's going on.
Check off Sorrowful Man,
yeah.
You know. And then there was some Ashai foreshadowing stuff that I kind of feel like got dropped.
I wish we got more on Ashai. I would desperately wish there was more.
So this is funny. I forget what Sansa spoils, but Sansa spoiled something in House of the Dragon season 2 that hasn't happened yet. So I forget what though. This was a great line.
3.
I really like this line. King Joffrey and King Robb and King Stannis were forgotten, and King Bread ruled alone. I thought that was hilarious. That's when
back to what you were just talking about. What was spoiled?
I forget. Sansa said something that is a plot. Like she was saying something about history. I forget what it was. She spoiled House of the Dragon season 2 or 3.
Okay.
But now I forget what the spoiler was.
It was probably Rhaenyra getting eaten by Aegon, the dragon. I almost forgot the dragon part of that equation. Like, her getting eaten by a brother is a way different thing.
Anyway, and I just like the bread line. Tyrek was still missing. I wonder how he was last seen. Anyone have any answers for me on that? I just don't remember.
I hear it was Azores.
Azores.
More of a horse than a mule. That's what I'm being told.
I will say,
Stannis time.
Poor one out Preston Greenfield, who did nothing except allow the great and honorable Balon Swan a white cloak by dying.
True.
Yeah.
This entire page is Stannis and about how cool Stannis is in this chapter. I spelled usurper wrong because I was typing on my phone. This these 2 pages are like the density of really cool Stannis stuff is off the charts.
So good.
I love the realization that he hates his own army and that his own army is less faithful and loyal than like the people following Joffrey and like Robb. It's so good. Mm-hmm. Like he got this army in this way and like he has to use it and he hates it. And I wonder if subconsciously that's why he put that useless dude in charge of the fleet. I'm kidding. And also, like, the classic, a good act does not wash out the bad, nor the bad the good.
Highlight that comment, please. The newest one. This is 100% correct. 100% correct. Dude would have the worst TMJ of all time.
And also, I just like to, here's the line. I swear I will go to my grave thinking of my brother's peach, which is just funny now in hindsight, but also was great character writing.
George didn't know about memes yet.
Yeah, well, I don't know if at that point the world knew what the peach emoji represented.
No.
But also, it's actually just a fire line without that because him wondering that, like, him thinking about, like, was there, like, deeper meaning that I missed was so good. This was the best Stannis chapter. Oh, yeah. They mentioned that there's spells woven into Storm's End. And I'm like, are these the same spells that were woven into the wall, which were allegedly both Bran the Builder, even though that's probably multiple people? And I'm like, would it be the best place to stand against others or dragons? Because there's a mention of the wall having effect on both of those creatures. And also, yeah, that was just kind of cool. I thought Storm's End is kind of cool.
That'd be kind of interesting because, like, when you think of the history of what's happened at Storm's End, dragons have definitely fought there, you know, like there's been stuff happening there,
but I don't think they've ever directly attacked the city itself. Like when Aegon
I don't think so. No, it's been above Storm's End.
Well, Vhagar and Tyrax, I forget Lucerys' dragon's name, but they were like at
they went in Storm's End. They didn't attack Storm's End directly, though.
No.
I don't know if that is a meaningful distinction because
I don't know if it is either.
The dragons didn't want to go past the wall. So
that might just not be a thing. But it would be really interesting if the spells woven into Storm's End have similar effects on like others. And obviously, like you expect the final stand the books if we ever get there to be at like Winterfell or something. But it
If
kind
they
of
get
be
the
cool.
Storm's End winter, like Westeros is fucked. There's that's so much of Westeros.
That is so much.
And that's why the show was terrible, because everyone should have died at Winterfell. That's the end.
Anyway, Storm's End is cool. All the castles are cool. Like, they're way bigger than what is realistic, but I feel like George is just like, I just want them to have huge castles. Don't like it.
Storm's
right?
End is my favorite. I love Dragonstone, but I love Storm's End.
I love Eerie.
They're all cool.
Josh's favorite too is the Eerie. Josh loves the Eerie.
Sunspear's kind of not that distinct, but all the others are cool.
But Sunspear has the water garden, which is
true.
Very, very pretty.
I think the design of Winterfell is really cool. Like the double wall with the moat in the middle. Like that would be horrible to try and attack.
Yeah.
Because you can't fill the moat with anything because you have to go 80-foot wall is like hilariously huge for a wall to be. But Winterfell is such a cool design. All right. Moving on.
John 5.
So Corin Halfhand, who's definitely not Arthur Dayne, by the way.
No, he's not.
That's because he's Howland Reed.
He's Corin Halfhand. So I while reading this book, I was like, none of these Corin Halfhand theories make any sense.
He's just Corin. Like he's just Corin. Let's leave it.
Crazy that you think he's just the guy that this book tells you that he is.
Yeah. That also he references multiple times about how he's been in the Night's Watch for like a really long time.
Really, really
long.
That's
so he definitely picked Jon to go with him because he knew Jon was a warg, right? Like he specifically picks Jon to go with him. They're going on their little expedition, and he's like, "I'll take Jon Snow." And then later, when Jon is dreaming, he's like, "Yeah, you were dreaming from your perspective. You're a wolf. Like we gotta go." He definitely saw ghosts following around and was like, "That's not normal direwolf behavior." Like
maybe,
I feel like
how would he go with normal direwolf behavior? Like that
direwolves act like wolves. I feel like.
I think it's more like everything he's heard about Jon Snow up to this point has been interesting.
Correct.
And he's young, which means that he needs training. And then also he does have a giant wolf, and also he's a Stark. So I think it's like I don't think he the thought couldn't have crossed his mind. I just don't think that was necessarily the reason. I think it's just like whatever's going on with this guy, let's take him.
I think it's just layered. I mean, he's the nephew of a Night's Watchman who's well regarded and respected. He is the alleged son of a
I feel like they're going on like a really specific like scouting party where they're not that likely to fight things, but are really likely to like die. And those are all weird reasons to bring Jon if you think he's like super like distinctive and might be important. But if you're like, he can see from the eyes of a wolf, that's a pretty damn good reason to bring him like scouting forward to try and find something.
I agree with that, but simultaneously, Benjen's a ranger, so like if Jon's anything like him, that would be a good person to have with you. But and then simultaneously, if you do fight, Ned's known as being an excellent fighter, so Jon theoretically would be too.
Also, I think Corin just obviously knows what wargs are and is the most likely to be aware of it, considering he has probably spent more time than any non-wildling north of
the wall. Yeah.
I just have to point out my man Stone Snake, who disappears and is explicitly never confirmed killed.
Is this the guy who like they get to run through to run?
Yeah, he runs over the mountain.
Yeah, and I'll mention him later. I was going to ask about him.
Oh, okay.
He's the Night's Watch dude because I was talking about because I was like, why are all the people from like the Shadow Tower on average so much cooler than the Castle Black people? Like, okay, Geor's cool and Jon's cool. Okay, they have Maester Aemon actually. Never mind, I retract that.
And
there's there's Gren, Pip, Dolorous, Ed. There's Ulmer, who I
love Ed. Loved. Oh, I love Ed so much.
Satin is at there's a bunch of cool ones, you know.
Okay. So this is Tyrion, and he's like, I'll do anything to save Shay. And then for the plan, he's like, well, that doesn't work because if I want to regularly fuck her, like that'll get noticed. And I'm like, yeah, you're such
he hit her is a perfect line.
I hadn't read this in a long time. Whatever. Tyrion,
But see, this kind of goes into that thing where I feel like we have a very selective memory with Tyrion, that we don't necessarily have with other characters because he's got so many funny one-liners and he is someone that is often viewed as like the downtrodden. You know, he's the underdog in the story in many ways. And you're like, oh, I want to root for that character. In many ways, Tyrion's an asshole. you
Also,
know, and
remember-
Oh,
yeah.
for sure. He bakes it. He puts a guy in soup.
Remember earlier when I was like, I'm gonna give Tyrion a lot of shit in this book, but like this was very clever. This is an example of me giving Tyrion shit in this book. Like, bro, just if you really want to keep her alive, just like don't sleep with her for a few weeks. Like, it's fine. You'll be okay. I
Unacceptable.
promise.
Unacceptable.
Yeah, Tyrion really had some issues around this whole thing.
Oh, and here's me. Look at this. Catelyn 6. Look what I say, Kyle. There you
Yeah,
go.
look at you. I'm glad. And this is, I feel like a lot of people do get this on reread because the first time through, you just like bias by perspective because, why wouldn't you?
But yeah, anyway. And then here, look at me. Things are happening in a Bran chapter. It was exhilarating. I didn't know what to do with myself.
I wish that was the blurb for the back of the book.
Do you think if
Complete
Theon had
with
killed
the LFG?
That's right.
do you think if Theon had killed Ramsay, who he thought was Reek at the time, right away, that he would have pulled off?
No.
No, okay. Before I was like, what are sources? I'm like, okay, that wasn't a typo. There's sources. So this is on first read. I completely missed something that's like, I completely missed that the Brave Companions were going to betray Lorch and go over to Roose Bolton anyways, like before Arya did all that. I don't know how I missed that the first time, but I was 14. So leave me alone.
Yeah, I feel like I missed it on the first time too, and I got it on the second time. I don't know, like it on reread or when you do just get it, it seems very, very obvious. But I think if you're just like going along with Arya's thoughts, and it never actually explains.
Arya never even considers it because she's a kid,
just
right? Because she thinks like a kid.
Yeah. He's like, do you understand? And she's like, yeah, I do, because I'm smart and intelligent and the best. And then so if you don't get it, you just don't get it.
And then there's a lot of comparison between Harrenhal and Winterfell. I mean, they both fall to trickery at the same time. And Arya in her head compares Harrenhal to Winterfell a lot. And I kind of think it's deliberate that Harrenhal, in terms of like objective metric, if you were looking at the stats, like size of the wall, size of the castle, location, potential wealth, Harrenhal is better in every way, according to like objective metrics. But like Harrenhal sucks and Winterfell is awesome. And I feel like that's relevant.
I love Harrenhal. I think it's creepy and weird and delightful.
Yeah, I love Harrenhal too.
Okay, to be fair though, like Tyrion has raped people. Like, let's call this what it is. He's not a good person. I don't think that's just conjecture at this point. That's pretty solidly affirmed.
I think a lot of I remember it kind of happened to me is when you first in Game of Thrones, when you start it, I was 14, so this might not apply to other people. Like you kind of expect him to suck at first because all the Lannisters so far have sucked, and he gets lumped in with all the other Lannisters from all the Starks' point of view at first. So then when he doesn't completely suck, it's like, oh, he's actually a good guy. And then it's kind of like...
he's just less bad. He's like, But I also feel in compared to like a Jaime, whereas Jaime is trending upwards, Tyrion is trending down.
I do think...
Storm's End, by the way, also fell by trickery. All I had to say.
I don't think Tyrion is going on a villain arc in the sense that, like, he raped people, like he's done bad things. Like I'm not defending him in that way, but I think what the question was: is it more like is he starting from this and then deteriorating, and then in the books is he going to continue deteriorating until like we fully are like he is now the villain or a villain? And I just don't. I personally don't think that's going to happen. I think Dance is supposed to be his like trough, and I do think towards the end of Dance, Penny is supposed to start to be trying to bring him out of that.
It's his W arc. We'll come back up. Yeah.
Okay. Do you guys think there's any significance to all three castles falling to trickery at the exact same time? Basically,
it's probably that red comment.
I think it's probably meant to like mirror each other. Although Storm's End falls earlier than the others.
I guess,
but yeah, I don't think it's. I think it's just I think Harrenhal and Winterfell are way more like consciously
linked,
compared in the book.
Okay, this series title drop was awesome. I love me a good title drop. like series title drop, book title drop. They bring me joy. This is a really fucking good title drop.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
House of the Undying Time. So,
before we get to Hearts Undying, sorry, I thought we were still going to be talking about the Arya scene. Did you catch when she's talking to the Frey? Or no, never mind. We're not there yet. House of Undying. Sorry, I forgot what's going on.
Okay, so House of the Undying. There's this guy. There's a guy in this, and I now forget the exact details. But when I read it, I was like, wait, it's not. I was like, is this Rhaegar or Jon? Like, which guy is this? Because it's referring to someone named Aegon, and I'm like, okay, in the show, Jon is Aegon, but like that's ridiculous because he has an older brother named Aegon.
What are you talking
Someone
about?
gets referred to as Aegon, like
his son Aegon.
Like, it's Jon.
No, it's not.
Yeah, no, it's got to be Aegon.
It's
like,
real Aegon. It's
like Conquer Aegon.
No, Rhaegar had 2 kids, Aegon and Rhaenys, and then they both got killed allegedly. And then in the Vision in House of Undying, it's him with Elia Martell with a baby, and he's like, we'll call him Aegon, and his name will be the Song of Ice or whatever. He's the Prince of Promise. So Rhaegar's whole thing is that he thought his son Aegon was going to be and then the dragon must have 3 heads. So then Aegon was the prince that was promised, and then Rhaenys would be the second head, and then he needed a 3rd kid because he needed a 3rd head for the dragon. But then Elia Martell had a really complicated birth, so she couldn't have kids anymore. So that's the alleged theory as to why he then went and found Lyanna to get the 3rd kid.
I think it's more that he just had the hots for Lyanna personally, but
I think that's why he chose Lyanna specifically.
Yeah,
but
correct.
in this scene, he's like, the dragon needs a 3rd. He could have, there's
there
ways
would have been.
Yes,
there would have been many people willing to have a child with Rhaegar Targaryen.
Many people probably would have lined up for that opportunity, but that is something that was really big in the books, and they never really acknowledge it in the show. Is the dragon has 3 heads? Like that is this whole thing that lingers, right? Because then it's like, is Daenerys Tyrion, and then we have like our 3rd secret.
This
Targaryen,
is why people want Tyrion to be a Targaryen, right?
Yeah, because the dragon must have 3 heads.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But I think now in hindsight of it, I was like not 100% sure who the he was and this was referring to, because I was like, it's kind of funny if it's like just like Rhaegar's son, because he was not
Jon being secretly named Aegon in the show is maybe the dumbest decision the show made. It's incredibly stupid.
And I actually wonder if it was caused by this, where they thought this was Jon and must be Aegon. Because I was confused.
I actually think it's way more simple than that, which is I think they don't trust their audience.
Man.
And I think if they can't have him be like Aegon Targaryen, then like the audience won't understand that he's actually a Targaryen, and they can't start calling him Jon Targaryen because it's like Jon Snow. So you can't. They just couldn't do it.
I'm just going to mention child abuse is not validated if your son is even if the kid is a secret Targaryen. I'd just like to mention that really quick.
So what do you think his name should have been? Jon's like actual.
Jon's actual name should be Jon, because his mother.
But it's not though. I don't think it would have been.
If he has a Targaryen name, like any other Targaryen name.
Or sorry, Lyanna. Are you saying like if Rhaegar had lived and named Jon?
Yeah.
What would he have named Jon?
It would have been like Viserys, most likely.
Because the 3 original Targaryens. Yeah,
because it was Aegon, and then the daughter was Rhaenys. So he was clearly going with.
Visenya.
And the male version of Visenya.
Yeah. So like he just had to gender bend the other name.
I wonder if
he even thought of that for Visenya.
When he had his 3rd kid and he was a guy, would he have been like, "Wait, what's going on? I was expecting to be able to name this kid Visenya." Shit.
Right. Yeah.
I wonder if that would have been his reaction, or if he would be like, "That's fine."
Conflict.
Maybe I don't know if it would have mattered that much. I guess it depends on how much they take the prophecy to be like literal, second coming of Aegon kind of deal. But
I definitely found with the stuff in regards to Rhaegar, like he was pretty literal with the prophecies and stuff. Like there wasn't much room for interpretation with him.
I think he would have been unsettled when Jon was a boy.
I agree.
I think he would have been like, wait, this is wrong. Like,
what do I do now? I've got 2 Aegons here.
I'll just maybe he was like, shit, I'll name this one Aegon, and then I'll have 2 more kids with Lyanna, and they can be Rhaenys. And yeah,
Maybe
and
that's what George told D&D.
And actually, D&D just thought of this, and you didn't. Did you ever consider that? I'm
a fake fan.
So I was confused because I was just kind of like, well, this is kind of weird if they're just like, this vision is about Aegon, who's like, at this point, like George, like the Aegon stuff isn't like, there's like no Blackfire stuff. I don't know if Aegon being alive was planned at this point. So this title drop is just kind of weird if it's about Aegon. And then I was like, but wait, it's not about Jon because there's no way Jon's name is Aegon. And then I was like, wait, is it about Conqueror Aegon? Is this like a vision from the past? I was really confused about who this was, but it's just Rhaegar's son, Aegon, I guess.
A lot of that stuff from the House of the Undying is somewhat confusing. When you first read through it, you're like,
I think it's still confusing. But
hey, I'm on my 3rd and I'm still confused. You just thought it was Jon like 4 minutes ago. So
I was so confused where we were because it keeps cutting in and out for me. So I'm getting like snippets of conversation. But
also, she hasn't read this book in like 7 or 8 years. So
it's been longer than that. It's been
earlier we were talking about some stuff and she just like didn't answer at all. And I'm like, she doesn't remember what we're talking about. But that's fine.
It's been 14 years since I've read this book.
Okay.
It's been
and that's fair. That's valid.
Yeah, it's been 14 years.
You're actually doing exceedingly well for the fact that it's been that long.
Thank
you. Spelling was hard. Okay, whatever. We're just gonna ignore that. But Trader's completely wrong. And look at the suggestion. Tractors. You know what? They're tractors now. We're going with
got a lot of tractors in King's Landing.
I'm fine with it.
Tyrion 11. He has an entire paragraph praising Baelon Swan, so that's pretty relevant. And I think
it is relevant. Yeah.
Say that again.
So what do you think?
It cut out for me. Say that again.
Tyrion has I was just reading this. Tyrion has
I can't read it. I don't have my glasses.
Okay.
So.
Tyrion has an entire paragraph praising Baelon Swan, Kyle's favorite random.
Kyle's favorite chapter.
And then I said I would be really interesting to see Cersei's perspective of picking Baelon Swan because I feel like there's a really good chance she did a good job by accident and actually had a really stupid reason for it.
For sure.
Probably.
But we do get her thoughts on Baelon Swan in Feast, and she also thinks he's good. So, Baelon Swan's the best.
Okay.
Vis-a-vis.
If the smart people and the dumb people both think you're good, you're probably
that's actually part of my thing is that like Baelon Swan's been seen through like 7 or 8 different POV characters who all like see the world differently, and they all think Baelon Swan is good. Like even Doran Martell is like, yeah, like Baelon's kind of part of like a plot to kill my son, but he doesn't really want to do it. Like, look at how sweaty and nervous he is. Could we just like not kill him? Like, so he's a pretty cool guy. Anyway, we can move on.
Also, I just think Tyrion putting this much trust in Varys is wild. Varys was like,
I love Varys.
I did too, but it is wild that he puts this much trust into it.
Yeah, so I don't know if you remember exactly what happens, but Varys was like, yeah, we found these. They're like 400 traitors. And Tyrion's just like, all right.
I feel like Varys and Tyrion, though, are kindred spirits in that both of them are looked down upon in terms of society, family, all that
convinced Tyrion that they're both kindred spirits.
Well, they are in many ways. And I think when you look at it, I think Varys is the unsung hero of the Seven Kingdoms. Like, dude's just trying to do good things. That's fine. But I
think you're thinking of the show more than the book.
I think this is because
I love them both.
Isn't Varys at this point just trying to keep things together because he doesn't want the Civil War yet?
Yeah.
But the yet is the distinction. Yeah. It's not that he doesn't want the Civil War. He doesn't want chaos.
Correct.
And thousands of people die yet. Which I feel like is generally, I'm like, if this is a good
person, you guys are missing the point here, which is that Tyrion trusts him to get rid of 400 tractors, which is really not that big of a problem.
Well, if they were going to be building and having a new construction program, it's going to be a very big problem.
Those tractors might have been useful in the Battle of Blackwater.
Exactly. Can you imagine? They would have dug all the trenches.
Here I'm making fun of this, George. The first sentence of this chapter is, one moment he was asleep, the next awake. And I'm like, yeah, that's typically how that goes. Any defenses, Kyle, for your goat on him?
No.
On sentence?
Stupid as stupid does. Like,
just ignore it. Just ignore that.
That's hilarious.
That was a funny line.
That's really funny.
Okay. Yeah, Josh would have been happy to see this because we have some Theon defense because he has that like he should have killed the wolves when he took the castle, and I was trying to come up with a reason why he didn't. And I couldn't come up with a reason to not kill the wolves other than being like it being the semi-decent thing to do.
So the thing with Theon, it's hard when you've only read this book to really understand a lot of the motivations for Theon, I feel like. And you only get more of that retrospective with him, obviously, the further you go on. I agree. It is that little speck of decency. And I think based on the interactions that we saw earlier in the book with Balon and his family, Theon has no real family at this point, and like the one family he really does have is the Starks. So this is this one little, kernel of kindness that he's gonna throw them.
So I agree with both of you, but I also think it's more about how he views himself to me, which is just that like he actually views himself like very, very highly, and
Yes.
obviously, but like. In terms of like when he's taking over the castle, all of his defense and like internal justifications are about how he treats them better than the other people would have. Like he sees himself as the hero protecting them from Balon and the other Greyjoys. So like, when like Gage is like getting mad and he has to kill him and stuff. And like, Farland is getting all these people in Winterfell are getting mad at him. He's like, you idiots. If it wasn't me, it would be way worse. Okay. Could you just sell? And like, so that's how he's constantly thinking of it. So like he sees himself as like their liberator in the best of the circumstances. So killing the direwolves would have been antithetical to that. It would have given him cognitive dissonance.
But that doesn't stop. Like killing other people doesn't give him his cognitive dissonance is pretty damn strong. Like
I know, but he's trying to
he has in the next chapter.
Right.
He has like a line where it's like, I could have treated them well. It's like, yes, okay, I had this person put to death, and okay, yeah, I had like this person whipped, but still, and I feel like he could have added the direwolves to that, being like, oh yeah, whatever, like they're wolves, they're loud, everyone hates them, like. So
I see what you're saying.
And also, nice little detail is that you can tell this is not Reek because the original Reek was supposed to always smell horrible no matter what. And he is very specifically smells of soap in this chapter. Yeah.
This is actually something I totally didn't understand the first time that I read Clash of Kings. Like the whole Reek Ramsay thing just 100% went over my head.
I missed it until I watched the show. Yeah. When I first read it. When I watched the show, I was like, oh. But wait, they got rid of Reek. I think I actually saw there was like a random video of like what was different in the book of the show. And someone was like, yeah, in the book, like actually Ramsay is pretending to be Reek here. And I was like, what? I don't remember that.
Ramsay. So sneaky.
Also, I really like with all the discussion of how Lewin very strongly is like, there's no magic to everyone. He, when trying to convince them to turn around, says that the Crannig men have secret knowledge and like magic. And I'm like, you be lying.
You be lying, Lewin. Lion, that'll be his new name. You be lying.
So here I say this, and then it gets confirmed like one chapter later. So we're just gonna skip it for now, because he had to know that like this is Corin leaves Jon to kill Ygritte. I do wonder if he at this point, if that was already deliberately setting up Jon to go to the Wildlings.
I think so.
I think he was. Okay, so this is a reoccurring thing for George antagonists that I think is a pretty realistic view of how like bad people cope in their head.
Hound.
Which Cersei also has kind of something similar to this, where she thinks everyone is like vicious schemers and all the leaders like don't actually care about the common folk, and this is just what they're doing. And the Hound thinks that like everyone thinks the way he does. He's just the only one that's honest. And I think a lot of actually bad people think this way. Like they think that everyone 100%. Is like horrible. Yeah. Oh, and also a friendly reminder that people in the Middle Ages were smart enough to realize that women who give birth at the age of 13 are way more likely to die, and their child is way more likely to die. Whatever. We're moving on from that. Yes, there are historical records of 13-year-olds having kids with the king. At the time, that was seen. Yeah, whatever. We're moving on.
I feel that way too about just like, all those things like when a girl has first flowered, and then now it's just like all these men are just like ready to have sex with her. And I'm like, but like, yeah, like that definitely happened. But like most people just would be like, that's still a child. Like they're just not, there wasn't like a thing that switched in like the 1700s where we just decided that no longer mattered. But yeah, George just loves it.
Just a random friendly reminder. Okay, so this is my random thing. The relative keenness of people's eyes, like come up a relative amount where it's like, oh, that person has like keen eyes. And is it actually just that all these people just like need glasses and that most people just don't have keen eyes at all? But it's just like most people, when they get to like 40 or 50, need glasses for like some kind. So most of these 40-year-olds are actually just like nearsighted. And the people with keen eyes are just people who don't need glasses.
I'm just like being dumb here. Like, are there glasses in this series? Does anybody?
Maybe maesters have like reading glasses, but I don't think people have, like prescription glasses.
Well,
so
I think Aemon is blind. Like Maester Aemon is blind, and I feel like he would have been the prime candidate for someone like who would have mentioned glasses of any kind.
He actually probably. I just was just like, oh, he's like blind, but he probably just has a really like needs a strong.
Probably has like cataracts, or his vision is just so.
Yeah, I mean, he might have cataracts, and then the glasses wouldn't help. But I'm wondering, like, are these people with keen eyes? They're like actually John, who has less keen eyes than the person from Shadow Tower. John is actually like me. He's just like minus 0.5 nearsighted. And then you're just everything is like 460p when it's really far away. If he puts on glasses, it's like 4K. That's how my eyesight works.
Mine's very similar.
And yeah, Squire Dalbridge's watches ended, and this is where I was like, the Shadow Tower Rangers are so cool. In fairness, the Castle Black Rangers are cool, but the Shadow Tower Rangers that Corin Halfhand brings are specifically cool, and they just get so.
They are, but I'm very attached to the Castle Black crew.
I don't know how I forgot this next.
His found family at Castle Black. I like them quite a bit.
When it was happening, like I was aware, the next thing for the Tyrion. When it was happening, like I knew it wasn't Shay. Like I'd forgotten that it wasn't Shay, and then when it was Alea, that was kind of funny. Which also, I'm like, so Tyrion has the line of how Cersei's joy will turn to ash in her mouth. Was he like actually not super mad and was just saying all of that because he knew she expected him to be really mad, and if he didn't act really mad, that's kind of ironic.
That's exactly what he's doing. Also, like whenever somebody mentions Alea and Chadiana and stuff, the one thing I think of, because I don't care about those characters at all, is George R. R. Martin getting really mad in interviews of like in season 2 when they're like, oh well, they're changing so much of my books. There's not Alea and Chadiana and there's so many problems. And I'm like,
I know that interview. I remember watching that interview.
So clearly cut those characters. Like, this does not matter, George. And I was just like, I always remember that stuff when like the seasons get later on and they change more and more, and George just gets quieter and quieter. I'm like
everything when they change everything. Yeah,
this man's upset.
Yeah, like think of how upset. Like removing fake Aegon. And he's mad. Yeah, he was mad. I don't think I've seen that interview. He was really mad that like they switched.
He's actually
to Ross.
The thing he was the most angry about was them killing Mago in season 1 because Drogo pulls out his throat or whatever, which is an excellent scene. And George said in several interviews, not in one, he was like, they killed Mago, but Mago is going to be in Winds of Winter, so I don't know what they're going to do about that. And it's like, George, they could do quite
whatever
literally anything.
Literally substitute any Dothraki in other than Khal Drogo.
Well,
guess what? It's time for Catelyn 7, folks. This is the best chapter of the first 2 books, according to me.
Jake, retake it. Just do it again.
What? Oh, you just didn't hear it.
No, she heard you.
I heard you. You called her Catelyn.
Oh, sorry, Catelyn. Catelyn 7.
There we are.
Is best chapter of the first 2 books, in my opinion.
That's a tall order.
So this is where first she tells Brienne, and like she's gotten the news of Brienne and Rickon, and like they're off doing the battle, and the battle ended, and she tells Brienne. And it was just really well written, both in hindsight, because like I know Bran and Rickon are alive, but I also know Catelyn is not going to get like any reunion, and it made me sad. And then it gets even better because then she goes and has a chat with the Kingslayer, who drops like 2 of his best lines in the series. The like so many vows line, they make you swear and swear. And how you're always breaking one line. And then also the I think it passing odd that I'm loved by one for kindness I never did, and reviled by so many for my finest act. Jamie's so good in this.
There's also
Jamie.
There's
Were you
also the
saying-
quote like, "There is no men like me. There's only me."
There
Yeah.
are no men
Another
like
iconic
me,
one.
only me.
Yeah. Anyways, chapter's so good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jamie is
I'm
my
trying-
favorite character. And
Okay.
Mine too.
beginning
A
to-
character doing dumb things does not make the book not good. Zin, come on. What is this?
Yeah, he didn't
That
say
scene
she
is
is the best.
excellent.
He said that's the best scene. He said that's the
Yeah,
best
I'm
chapter.
not saying like Catelyn was a super genius in this. I'm saying it was a phenomenal piece of fiction.
I think it's an appropriate reaction for a mother. Like, it is someone who is distraught, thinks that her children have died, and she looks at someone who she blames for the catalyst of all of this happening, and it's Jamie, and it results in that conversation.
But
Which
yes, it ends with her asking Brienne to give her
yeah,
her sword and then
her
she
sword,
leaves
and
it.
it's so good. I agree.
I,
You might be right. It might be the best one in the first two books. It's great.
I think it's a bad decision, obviously, but I don't hate it as much as the decision to capture Tyrion, which like I find no defense
No,
for.
yeah.
I think everything about that's ridiculous.
So dumb.
And
Agreed.
people who try to defend it or like Catelyn started the war, and I'm like, sure, lots of other events led to her starting the war, but you know what? The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand started World War One, and we
Yeah.
don't get an alternate reality where something else might have started World War One. That is the thing that started it, and Catelyn kidnapping Tyrion is the thing that started the war. So that one I find like inexcusably dumb. I do agree that I'm like I can see where she's coming from in this one, even if it is also like,
my beef with Catelyn in book one is not actually just that she started the war. It's that when all the other people are in the north are like, we're going to go to war. And she's like, no, we have to do peace. Like all these fools. At no point does she think to herself like, gee, I really screwed the pooch on that one. Like that was not smart of me.
There is zero self-reflection, I feel like, with her character, which is one of the reasons I'm sorry, Bighorn, if you listen to this, like I know she's Catelyn stan forever, but for me, I really struggled with her character because she has this inferiority complex, I feel like.
Superiority complex.
Yeah, like everyone else is inferior and she is
I totally
always
agree.
right. And
I totally agree.
Yeah.
The only person who's allowed to be right that's not her are like older men that she's always thought. Like Roger Cassell, Maester Lewin, Ned, her father, and the Blackfish.
Blackfish.
But that's
the end
it.
of the list.
And like everybody else is just dumber than her all the time. And I just hate it.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah, it's definitely like she has aspects that make her an annoying person. I found her more annoying in A Game of Thrones. She's still kind of annoying here, but I just think she's a really interesting character, and she has like.
I also think she's really interesting, and I do love this chapter. I was trying to think of a chapter I obviously like more than this one.
So
and
I think my second favorite is the last Daenerys chapter in Game of Thrones.
Yeah, I was gonna mention that one, and I also think I like the chapter of Arya in Harrenhal, where she says like the ghost of Harrenhal is me or whatever. I love that chapter.
So. That was a banger too. That I think like the end of that chapter especially was amazing. I wasn't like this chapter is kind of two parts, like it kind of does two things, and I think both are absurdly excellent. Like Catelyn telling Brienne about like the news about her kid and like thinking about the union was written so well, and then the conversation with Jamie was just like, okay.
For me, if we're counting it as a chapter, it would be either the prologue to Clash of Kings or the scene we are currently discussing. But I do love the final scene of the final Daenerys chapter in the Game of Thrones is excellent as well.
And then, hey, there's some pretty banger chapters after this in this book that we're going to get to.
How many chapters do we have left? How close are we getting? Because there is no way we're talking about.
Yeah. Oh my god. Yeah. We'll do it another day.
Yeah.
I already knew that. I was like, "There's no way we're getting to Watchers on the Wall. We're 2 hours and 15 minutes."
There's no way.
Watchers on the Wall is awesome, by the way. That's what you.
I think Jake and I talked about A Game of Thrones for like an hour and 20 minutes, so we're like doubling the time.
Yeah.
Well,
you had another person.
Yeah.
I should have predicted that adding another person when that person would talk, and that would take time.
I somehow did not. Yes, I am not a silent being.
Yeah, I was planning on inviting you just so you could sit there and observe.
We're also just like all chaotic, so we just
now.
Okay. Also, in the previous John chapter, Ygritte says that the gods do not look kindly on kinslayers, even accidental ones. Let's see what happened to Theon after what was some accidental kinslaying.
I hate this theory. This is a dumb theory. It adds nothing. Stop listening to Preston Jacobs. Okay, just stop.
This is bookborn, so this is
what? This isn't a bookborn theory.
Wait. Oh, which theory is this? That Theon killed his kid? What theory is this?
Yeah, the kinslaying. He did those kids. Listen, let me explain something to you. The kids being that like that's such an obscurely non-important thing that's never going to come back around, and like it wouldn't be the older kid anyway. It would only be the second kid. And if that's the case, like I just feel like she's also married to this dude. It could easily have just been the other the husband's kid. It adds nothing.
Definitely
it's just
Theon's
people being
kid.
like
Definitely Theon's kids.
This adds nothing.
It's Theon's kids.
It adds that in the previous
around.
John chapter, someone specifically brought up that the gods do not look kindly upon accidental kinslayers, like directly as that would be accidental kinslaying.
Sure would. All signs
Well, we'll
point
never-
to kinslaying.
Whatever. I actually like if it was revealed to be true. Like it's not like I would care. People are just like anybody that's ever had sex must have gotten somebody pregnant, and I'm like, okay, I don't know if this is science, but that's fine.
Clash of Kings is happening. For those who missed it, the theory is that the kids that Theon killed.
I think he's asking what's the point, and the point is that it would be gross. That's the thing. It's like, oh, he killed his kids.
All right, whatever. Yeah, I just wanted them to defend Winterfell but I was like, maybe they can pull it off. But like this is, I'm like, Theon had so many outs where he could have made his plan work. Like,
yeah.
And I think the last one was killing the two boys. It just screwed him up so much. Gods don't like kinslays. It had such like effect on him. Oh, there goes Laura. Rip power.
We're back.
Okay.
She's feeding her cats.
Valid. I'm surprised my cat hasn't yelled at me. What's up, Finn? I feel like there's just so many places where like he's like, I need to either go down the right door or the left door. And he had so many where he could have escaped. It's not like, in the House of the Undying, you have to take the right door every time. He just needs to take the right door once, man. And he would have, not gotten reeked. Well, it was already second and it's not passing Storm. So actually, this is the book that has the least potential for upward moving of any on Reread, other than Storm, because Storm's already won. But there was basically no shot at catching Storm, so Clash Kings.
I would say there's a higher chance. I don't think this will happen, but there's a higher chance of you liking Feast so much on Reread it becomes your favorite, than you rereading Clash and liking it more than Storm.
Yeah, I mean, Feast also has a better chance of catching Clash than. Like a way better chance of catching Clash than Clash does of catching Storm. Anyway, we got me. We're gonna zoom through maybe a little more. We got Sansa, and here we go. Battle of the Blackwater time. I have Sir Imry wearing armor at sea versus Victarion doing it is the flirting versus harassment meme. Because Davos thinks that like this dude Sir Imry is like wearing armor in a sea battle, and he's like, what an idiot, look at this pompous fool. But Victarion does it, and he's a cool badass. Whatever.
That's because Victarion knows that he shouldn't do it, and he's like, I'm gonna do it anyway because I ain't gonna drown. And then
this
Sir
isn't
Imry
the mob
does
mentality.
drown.
It's because it's a wildly incredible book, Ben. Whatever.
Like it is just the better one, Ben. Like, I don't know.
I'd like to know.
Liking
Storm
Clash
was my
more.
favorite before I knew what the consensus ranking was. Like 14.
Yeah, I didn't talk to anybody about it.
What the consensus
and you know what?
was.
Most of us didn't. If you talk to people who love Storm, most people aren't like, I went online and I saw that everybody loves Storm and I couldn't wait to get to it. They just were at home and they read Storm of Swords and they were like, this is the best one.
Yeah, like I was 14. I had no idea which one other people thought were the favorite, and I would have been like, Storm of Swords is obviously the best one. Probably 14 me would have had less. 14 me would have been like, I think
it's just because Ben values shock value so much that like all the shocks were gone for him. So he's just like, oh my god, Clash of Kings had like, I don't know. I don't know why Clash is his favorite. It's wild, but anyway.
And then my other very creative notes here are that I'm sad they cut the chain in the show. And that at one point, a ship named Loyal Man Fury that belonged to Joffrey is described as Joffrey's Loyal Man Fury. And for a second, I thought the name of the ship was actually Joffrey's Loyal Man Fury. And I thought that was quite funny. This but then we get something the show has, this doesn't, which he doesn't say that those are brave men knocking at your door. Let's go kill them. And also that bugger the king's hand just doesn't hit the same as fuck the king. So
I agree. Bugger doesn't work as good.
And also the king's hand, like whatever. Compared to obviously in the show, the Hound says, fuck the people, fuck the king. But that being said, the swordie was still hype as hell, and it was awesome.
Do you know the part I'm going to talk about in the sortie?
Balon Swan?
Fuck yes, I am. Balon Swan and Mandon Moore back to back, covered in
That's
gore.
the next chapter. That's 14.
Is it? Okay,
I mentioned it. Hold.
Okay, where are we?
We're at the Battle of the Blackwater.
Oh, excellent.
We have me reading. There's a ship that belonged to Joffrey that's described as Joffrey's Loyal Man Fury. And when I first read it, I thought it was an actual ship named Joffrey's Loyal Man Fury, which was very funny. And then I was sad that the book version didn't have those are main brave men knocking at your door. Let's go kill them. That being said, the sortie was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And this part is apparently not at night. It mentioned that it was like still day, and I don't care the sortie is at night. This is the one time where show canon is, I'm deciding it beats book canon. And
I like it all being at night too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the practical thing because they didn't have to have as much of a budget, and I'm like, it just works better.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
Especially now I'm picturing like the explosion would have been during the day. No, it isn't. Like it's at night.
It's
Leave
at
me
night.
alone. We're gonna skip the Sansa because I think we can agree that Cersei might not be a nice person. That was when she was like, then if you're in here, we're gonna like kill you. But he says those are brave men, let's go kill them to Balon Swan.
I thought that he did, but I was like, it would have been in this chapter, so I was just one chapter off. So.
And then I'm like, as much shit, this is what Kyle was talking about. Like the modern Kingsguard, they get a lot of shit of being like not as good as previous Kingsguard. Mandon Moore and Balon Swan wreck some fools in this chapter.
They do.
Like they are human. They do their best John Wick impression, or maybe John Wick was doing their best Mandon Moore and Balon Swan impression.
I also just like while we're talking about it, at the end of this battle, Balon Swan is the only person still commanding troops available. Everybody else is dead, fled, or injured. And he also was like in the thick of the fighting on a boat, burning to the ground, and he somehow like gets out of that and lives. And I'm just like,
he's very cool. Also, I think it's worth noting that I think Mandon Moore was obviously to some degree conflicted about his order to kill Tyrion, because if he wasn't, he would have just killed him right away.
Agreed.
But he waits for like after all the fighting, and then he's kind of like in his head, you have to imagine him being like, I have to do it now. Like this is my last chance.
He's
and
conflicted about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a part of him who like he probably expected him to just die in the fighting, and then he wouldn't have to do anything.
Yeah.
What are your guys' theories on why Mandon Moore attacks him?
Say that again.
I think Joffrey was mad at Tyrion and wanted him.
You think it's Joffrey?
I'm not sure, but I think it was.
I'm not like saying this is like a gotcha. Like I know the answer. I just go back and forth all the time. I don't know if it's something that's ever going to be answered. But a lot like Tyrion wonders out loud in Storm if it's Littlefinger. I don't think that makes a lot of sense, but we do get confirmation Littlefinger just doing shit to sow chaos.
Yeah,
and Littlefinger was mad at him. So
I don't think that's what it is, though. I think it's Joffrey.
Yeah, maybe.
I think
if it's Joffrey, we'll never know.
No,
I think Littlefinger would have killed him differently than having a Kingsguard.
Yeah, I agree.
I think Littlefinger ordering a Kingsguard, like Littlefinger's advantage is he can bribe people.
Yeah,
his like the Kingsguard. Some of the Kingsguard are bribable, but the Kingsguard are on average the least bribable group. Like generally, almost.
The thing is that Mandon Moore is from the same place that Littlefinger's from, and that like.
I still think he would have gotten a less traceable person to kill.
I agree.
Tyrion.
It would have been an unknown.
It would have been one of the Kettle Blacks.
And then we get to, hey, it's night now. So nighttime. Battle of Blackwater is awesome. We all know that. And then I have Sorrowful Men, or what happens if I ask my mom if we can stop and get faceless men, and she says we have faceless men at home. So I'd like to note this.
Barristan.
Yeah, Barristan shows up as well. So this is a pretty cool Daenerys chapters, and I kind of like the idea of generally Qarth and like the Yedi Empire being their thing, and then there's son dying. So I was kind of like, of the 5 Daenerys chapters, like one is this one, which was kind of cool. One was House of the Undying, and then there's the one like where they're on the way to Qarth. So are there only like 2 proper Qarth chapters?
There's not many.
That's not that many
Yeah.
Qarth chapters.
That's why in the show she just yells, "Where are my dragons?" for like 5 episodes.
Yeah, because they can't be like, oh yeah, we're actually gonna have way less Daenerys in this.
I was really irritated with season 2, specifically for how they treated the Daenerys plotline.
Yeah.
It was really bad.
They also just kill off all the Dothraki.
Yeah.
Okay, we got the moment where I think Roose Bolton betrays Robb. I think we see the moment here, and it's after Tywin beats Stannis, and he sends like the order to execute a bunch of people as if it was Robb's order. And I just
he sends them to attack.
Yeah, he sends them to attack, and he says like Robb. Yeah, and he's like, order from your king. And I just really appreciate Arya's dedication to not name dropping herself, because I think there were so many moments where she could have been like, I'm Arya Stark, bitch. And it would have been really personally satisfying. And I don't know if I would have had that discipline to not name drop myself a single time.
Did you catch in this chapter where she wishes for her own death? When the Frey is like, oh my God, there's been a betrayal. I was supposed to marry a princess. And then she's like, I hope your stupid princess dies. But then that's actually the Frey that like she was supposed to marry.
I didn't catch that.
Yeah, it's funny irony.
I didn't catch that. That's where I was like, wow, she like, because that dude is being like, I'm so much better than you. That was one of the moments where, man, that would have been hilarious if she had name dropped herself then. Yeah. If she'd been like, I'm actually Arya Stark.
Yeah.
Dude would have been like, do you think there is a person in Harrenhal she could have name dropped herself to that would have worked out?
Any of the, I would have to go back. So they free the prisoners before like Roose gets there and stuff. And I think a lot of those people are actually like Stark loyalists. I think Robert Glover is the number one person she should have said to. I know for sure Robert was one of them. And then like, so for people who don't remember, in Dance with Dragons, Robert Glover is the one who comes to see Davos when he's imprisoned by Manderley. And he's like, oh, he takes him there and they have a secret meeting and he's like, go get Rickon. So Robert Glover is like confirmed a secret staunch Stark ally. So that's probably the number one pick. But also Wireless Manderley was there too. So that would have been another good pick.
Definitely Tywin.
Well, because all the people she's like on scene, presumably she could have found some of those people, but everyone she interacts with on scene, because I kept looking out, I was like, come on, Arya, just tell someone like, this is the Northern Army. But she keeps interacting with Boltons and Freys.
Yeah, and like also she doesn't know who to trust.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying if I was in that situation, I'd be like, I'm gonna go find Robert Glover. I'm just saying with my own
like
knowledge
that's
of the
like
story.
that's in hindsight. Like if you and I think probably her way was the wiser, because she's not going to know who's safe, and probably if you went by percentage of people where like there's people who'd be like, oh, you're Arya Stark, kidnapping, versus there's or dead, versus there's no goddamn shot, you're Arya Stark, shut the fuck up, versus oh shit, you're Arya Stark, let's go talk to Robb. Like the percentage of the third one is probably pretty low.
Very
so it'd be hard to find that. And I'm like, so much had to go wrong for Ramsay to end up with Winterfell. Like they kept doing coin flips, and it was just like, you just need head once, and it was just like tails, didn't execute Reek. Tails, Ramsay as Winterfell. Which is such a pain in the ass later, like in Dance. Like, God, I hate that dude. He sucks. And he got so lucky, that bastard.
You don't even remember how much he sucks. You don't remember that.
I know. Tyrion dreaming about having a supportive father was really heartbreaking.
Yes.
And then here's me. I'd recently like heard people talking about like the Corran Halfhand, Arthur Dane's and I'm like, this makes no goddamn sense. Like, he's definitely just Corran Halfhand.
He's not Arthur Dane. He's just let Arthur Dane be. He's just not. Yeah. Sometimes people are just the people they are.
Okay, and then also him consistently asking whether Jon's sword was sharp was really good, because then at the end when he says it, that's his way of hinting that like, I knew this was going to happen. Like, you killing me was going to plan. Don't, like, you didn't betray me. Because obviously as soon as Jon's like, it's a Valyrian steel sword, which he knew beforehand, it's like, bro knew the sword was sharp. The sword has been in a constant state of sharp since its inception, like thousands of years ago. And that's that. And then we get to Brand 7, and I'm like, I feel like Lewin bleeding out on Heart Tree might end up being relevant.
I agree.
He was awesome in the second half of this book.
So we didn't actually go back to my man Stone Snake, which I am convinced he's coming back. Like, there's no way George does not just like do that kind of stuff. So for people who don't remember, Stone Snake, they're like, hey, like Corn Halfling is like, go over there, and then he sends the other guy to like block the retreat, and then when the wildlings catch up, they show the head of the guy that stopped them, but nobody ever mentions Stone Snake ever again. I'm like, that guy is just hanging out with Benjen somewhere.
And they send him out running. They send him out running because and they're kind of like, you might actually get away because they might follow the horses.
Yeah. So I'm very curious. A lot of people, when I bring that up, think it's just like a dropped thread, like George just forgot. And I'm like, now, do I think Stone Snake is going to impact in a large way? Absolutely not. But there's no way George just forgot. That's
no. Everything he does is very intentional. He's probably the most intentional writer I've ever come across. He's not just dropping stuff like that.
Tyrion doing a backflip? A shy? I feel like he actually, I don't know if I agree about that generally. I think he does have a ton of stuff that he just drops because he throws in a ton of stuff that he's like, I'll pay off some of these later. And then
I think comes
back and he's just like
Ashai is meant to be mysterious. Like, I don't think we're meant to know a lot about Ashai.
I think he definitely didn't know how much he was going to do with Ashai at the point of writing, and he ended up doing. I think he's one of the people who's kind of like, I'll just throw in like a ton of stuff. Sure. So, like, no matter where I want to go, I'll find something. So
I'll connect it later.
Yeah. Evan dies still. Okay, so that's it. That's the book. And the resulting score, I did end up halfway in. I like the first half of Game of Thrones more than I like the first half of Clash of Kings, but the second half of Clash of Kings goes hard. So I still do like it more than a Game of Thrones, but it did become closer. We did give it on my like book random unhinged book ranking list where I have like every book I've ever given 4 stars or higher.
Yep.
It is above a Game of Thrones by like 2 books. I've got in order. I've got like Curse of the Challeon, and then I've got like Game of Thrones, and then I've got like Jade Legacy, and then I've got Clash of Kings, and then I've got Children of Time.
Okay. So what's our numerical value?
More than those 2.
I love Children of Time. I gave it a 9.2. Yeah. Which is worth noting. It's actually worth noting there's missing context in that after I did the Game of Thrones this year in January, there was a great rating drop of 2024 where I was like, I've given like 36 books 9.2 and like 4 8.9. So a bunch of the low 9s got distributed into the high 8s. So a 9.2 is actually higher than it was when I read a Game of Thrones. And Game of Thrones is one of the ones that stayed 9 point where it was.
So sorry, what is the Game of Thrones rating? 9.1?
I think it's 9.1 because it might have been one of the one that moved down a bit. Some of the 9.2s I think became like 9s. Now I'm just like checking. Can you guys see Goodreads when I look like it? No, maybe.
I will say one thing you didn't talk about is how banger of an ending line that is. I think George ends every book on a banger line.
Yeah, he does.
He does.
And so this one ending on like Winterfell's not broken and neither am I, or whatever it is. Banger.
I forget exactly what the line is, and I'm going to check right now. It was not dead, just broken. Like me, he thought. I'm not dead either. Not as good of a final line as Game of Thrones. The Game of Thrones final lines is...
Things are that good. So, yeah. But the prologue, that's where he compensates. So, prologue.
Since we're not doing...
there is no time
Watchers on the Wall. But that means we have time for...
just for everybody, when we were planning this, Jake was like, if we do both of them, it'll probably take like 2.5 hours.
No, I was saying definitely more if we're doing both. Because I was like, this one last time was like an hour and 40 minutes. And I was like, both, it's going to be really long. I was aware that it would be very long. I didn't know if this would go that long. So I'm going to switch the screen sharing to A Song of Ice and Fire, POV character tier list. And we're just going to pretend that only A Clash of Kings exists. All the other books are fake.
Okay, then after this, I am going to bed.
Absolutely.
What time is it there for you? 11:30?
10:30.
Oh.
I have a toddler that gets up at 5:30 though. So.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're ignoring every character that doesn't have a point of view in a Clash of Kings. They don't count. So that means Bran is first. Any questions?
Nope.
What are the rank? I can't see the.
The rankings are best, consistently great, usually good, ite, meh, yawn.
I like
Realistically, by those descriptions, Bran is probably meh. None of them are yawn, but whatever.
Yawn.
And then the bottom is why are you a fucking POV, which is none of them for this book. Theon. Thoughts?
I would put him at usually good. Personally.
I agree with usually good. I think his chapters were pretty good.
They're fine. I'm ranking it more as a. So are we ranking it for the POVs themselves? Or the
I guess
characters?
I would. That's a good question. Whichever.
I was ranking them in terms of like how much I enjoy reading them, not like.
Okay, I was ranking them in terms of
chapters.
their characters. Okay, so then yes,
Okay.
I would agree he's in usually good.
Okay, no. Next we have Sansa. I really like Sansa's chapter.
Sansa's very good. Maybe not top, but consistently great.
I go consistently.
I would
great,
say usually good for Sansa, but again, I read this a very long time ago and would probably have a different experience reading her now.
Now,
aren't you guys rereading soon?
We're gonna be starting in like a week or so. Yeah,
That's exciting.
So now this is some lady. I think it's Catelyn's mom. I forget her name. Whatever. It's Catelyn.
Catelyn's mom.
No, sorry, Sansa's mom. I was avoiding saying the name.
Catelyn.
It's Catelyn.
It's Catelyn's mom, Catelyn.
So the thing is, I think she has the best chapters, but
I would put her in best too. Well, it depends. If we're using best like literally, as in the only one person can do it, then it would be Tyrion. But I really like her chapters in Clash.
I would agree with Kyle for that. Tyrion would be number one in that case.
Yeah. So I'm not putting. I was like, I think she has the best individual chapter, but I think her average chapter is behind.
Fair.
Tyrion.
I would put her third personally.
Yeah, I think Tyrion, Arya, Catelyn for this book.
For this book, yeah.
Is that your top? Is that what you were thinking, Kyle?
Yes, yeah. Sorry.
For me, that's not my top three, but I can see why people would feel that way.
Okay, now next we got Davos. He has like
Best.
chapters.
Best.
Pretty good.
Actually, you know what? No, I would put him personally as consistently great because he doesn't have that many chapters and they're all bangers.
I would put him in best. I forget what Davos.
Okay, I'm putting him in consistently great because that's what democracy is saying. I would have him in usually good.
Okay, but think about it. No, he has the scene where like the
he has that Stannis chapter.
Then he has where he goes with the boat. Then he has the Courtney Penrose, bring on your storm, sir, and recall, if you will, the name of this castle, goat scene. Then he has half of Battle of the Blackwater. Now, I will say his Battle of the Blackwater chapters are a little bit boring. Not all of them, but he's just like, there's that ship, and then there's that ship, and then there's that ship, and then that ship went to the left, which allowed the right ship to go on the right, and then the right ship moves 2 inches to the diameter of the left. And I'm like, Davos, none of us care.
Okay, consistently great. You've sold me. Okay, next is Jon. I really like Jon. I'm pretty high on Jon. Where are you guys?
I would put Jon? Usually good.
I would put him on great. I really love the Jon
I love
chapters.
Jon. I'm a big Jon guy.
But okay, he doesn't have that many good chapters in
I feel
Flash,
like almost all.
I love all the stuff with Corin though. Like
I really like.
Yeah, so do I.
Stuff.
So do I. Like I would just put him a little bit lower, like in comparison to the people that we have in great. But
well,
that's
to
fine.
be fair, I also my order is a bit different from you guys. Like Sansa for me isn't in that one where she is for you guys. So.
This is a consensus. Okay, Arya, I think is. I'm gonna put 2 people in best, and Arya's.
Yeah, I think Arya is best with Tyrion.
All her stuff in Harrenhal is
like the Harrenhal
incredible.
So good.
Yeah.
Daenerys.
What's underneath Theon? Ite. I put her in Ite, but I know you guys don't agree.
I would put her in usually good / consistently great. I feel like.
Yeah, I would probably be in between like usually good and Ite. Even though I'm like a little bit higher, I was still like, I mean, it's still like the worst thing.
House of the Undying is so good. Like that makes it for me.
We'll go usually good.
Yeah.
Even though really the usually is like 20% of the time, and then the rest are like they're pretty good. But the usually one is fire. And then all that's left is Tyrion. No discussion needed.
Yeah.
Because this is the best Tyrion book.
Agreed.
And he's
so
excellent.
Doesn't Cersei have a POV in this book?
Nope.
No. This actually might be my exact ranking. Now that I'm looking at it, I think this is I might switch Jon and Sansa.
This was supposed to be consensus, and we just went with Kyle. I'm so disappointed.
Yeah, I mean, looking at it, I would have Daenerys higher personally, and I would have
Wow. This is Ben's favorite book, and he somehow didn't like the part that everybody else likes. Ben, you are so yourself. You know,
Ben, come on, Ben. I don't know. No.
I feel like Ben doesn't want anything where he has to think about something that's not the thing. Like
maybe
he's reading Dandelion Dynasty, and they're talking about themes. I can't do themes, and then they're talking about prophecy. I can't do prophecy. There's dreams. I can't do dreams.
Oh,
I just want stuff. Love you, Ben.
That's funny. That's funny.
Hey, you know what book has a lot of stuff? A Storm of Swords.
Sure does. Have you started reading it?
No, I'm gonna probably speed up the timeline a little bit because this, even though it's my second favorite A Song of Ice and Fire book, it kind of had the least specifically exciting reread potential because I remember the first 3 books better, and it's the one that had like the first one. It was like, ooh, this is the first one, so it would set up the general trend of how much more I would like the series. And then the second one, it's like, I mean, I'm not gonna like it more than Storm of Swords.
Right.
It's really the only way it has to go is like, what if I don't like it as much as Game of Thrones?
Sure.
And then the third one's exciting because it's a Storm of Swords.
Yeah.
And then Feast for Crows, 14-year-old Jake was just like, no Jon, no Dany, no Tyrion, wah! And then 17-year-old Jake was like, okay, I guess it's a little better, begrudgingly. But was still better about it. So Feast for Crows has has potential for being in most improved rating on Reread ever for me, which right now the most improved book on Reread, I think, is like Assassin's Apprentice or Fellowship of the Ring. So but it's got a chance.
Yeah.
And then Dance is less exciting to me than Storm and Feast because I'm sure while Dance, just like Feast, I'll notice a bunch of stuff that's really good that I didn't notice. I also think I'm going to notice a bunch of stuff I'm angry about that I didn't notice. So that's
when do you think you're going to get to Feast and Dance?
I have no idea.
Okay, so maybe I'll catch up in my reread by the time
you feasibly could catch me. Yes,
I don't think I'll be going that fast.
Like a full year ago.
I'm gonna read Storm of Swords. There's gonna be less of a gap for Storm of Swords and Feast for sure because I'm more excited to read those than I was to read Flash for all those reasons.
Cool, it's exciting.
Long stream, but that was fun.
Yeah,
it was fun.
Stream Watchers on the Wall. Pretty good episode.
I watched it today and it's a good episode. There's my preview.
It's all right. That's mine.
Oh, are you on the hater side of this one?
I am not as positive on this one as I am on others that we talked about.
Like Battle of the Bastards. You're uninvited from inviting me to your love bomb.
Jake can come on and I'll chat with Jake and we'll say, oh, wouldn't it be a nice thing if Kyle were here and had agreeable opinions? But alas, that's not going to happen.
I don't think I'll say, wouldn't it be a nice thing if Kyle were here?
No.
Because he threw shade at my humor earlier. He's like, I'm surprised you said something funny.
That's how you and Kevin said, took it. But what I meant is I just didn't expect you to say something funny in that moment. Like, I wasn't expecting the level of humor.
Well, I think you're very funny, Jake. So
thank you. I'm glad one other person, thinks this.
I think you're fine most of the time.
I would put Kyle in the I category here.
It's like, Kyle's kind of hard to rank because sometimes he's really good, but sometimes he's like completely unhinged. But I feel like we just average it out to I,
Yeah, for sure.
I think that's fair.
Okay.
In Sarah's Discord, one last anecdote before we go. In Sarah's Discord today, her husband popped in, and he doesn't pop in very often. And he was like, "Yeah, so I was reading the book, I really liked it." And Sarah asked me, what I should rate it. And he's like, well, it can't be 5 stars because the perfect book doesn't exist, so nothing can be 5 stars. So then she asked me to rank her, or to rate her, and I said 4.5 stars. I was like, that's pretty funny.
The rest of the conversation's pretty funny, too.
Yeah.
All right, guys. This was awesome. Very long. I'm glad we did watch
chat, which was multiple people, mostly Zin and then Ben with various unhinged takes. Chat was actually really unhinged considering how few people it was. Like the unhinged per person was off the charts. But we're always glad to have Ben here. Hey Ben, what do you think of this thumbnail? Did it make you angry in any way? Just curious. That's an inside joke for those who are not in Alice's Discord.
He's gonna post later. He's gonna be like, they posted that the name is a Clash of Kings reread and Watchers on the Wall rewatch, and they didn't even talk about Watchers on the Wall. Ridiculous.
We did mention it a few times, so it's not like it wasn't discussed. It just wasn't analytically discussed.
Yeah. All right, I actually really have to go. Talk to you
Yeah.
guys.
Okay, goodbye. I'm gonna have dinner. Thanks for coming on, everyone. Thank you,
Bye,
Jack.
guys.